All right, everybody, welcome. Good evening, and welcome to the April 11th, 2018 work session of the Penfield Planning Board. Allison, please call a roll.
Hetzke.
Here.
Bastian.
Here.
Knauer.
Here.
Tidings.
Here.
Nersinger.
Here.
Sangster.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Weissar.
Here.
All right, we got minutes from our February 7th.
Nope.
No. From our last meeting.
March 28th.
Yeah.
Slight typo on that one, but
I'm thinking,
the
yeah,
other one we're good. Other one we're good. Don't worry.
we've already approved those.
Yeah, we're past that.
Okay,
Apologies.
last meeting, got minutes. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review them and take a look.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Tidings.
Hetzke.
Aye.
Bastian.
Aye.
Knauer.
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
All right, Zach, you want to run through our table items and the rest of the agenda?
Sure. Our first table application this evening is the Wilbur's project on Salt Road.
I will have to recuse myself.
And sorry about that, thank you. I just need the site plan done, actually. And the most recent one. Ooh, that's not it.
411?
Oh, we got a set, I forgot about that. Alright, here we are. Can you zoom into the front area, please? Thank you. We'll do the zoom out. So, last time we spoke about this, a few meetings ago, we had reviewed the project in general, and the applicant was working on some updates per the board's request. Some of the things that have been added since you last saw it is this no parking area here by the Ford delivery, the bay doors where vehicles exit to go out and do some carry out shipments. They've added a 5-foot crosswalk leading to the main building from the employee parking area. This has been designated an employee parking area in their responses. They've added a sidewalk from the customer parking, which will also have employee parking there as well, down to the main building. And that gets you in the doorway this way.
So can we back up for a second? The no parking area will be pavement?
Correct. This is a paved area. It was paved originally. They added striping here. This would be striping added to the plan to avoid any conflicts or people parking in front of these bay doors, which have trucks going out in the morning.
Okay. They're at grade
Yes.
doors.
Yep. Those are garage doors, not loading docks. Can you zoom back out, please, Doug?
Maybe they should put no parking, active loading area or something like that.
Loading zone or whatever.
I think it could also be posted on like, on the doors or the building as well, like you typically see. They also add the remaining movements for the 18-wheeler, the tractor-trailer exit movements leaving the site. Originally, we just had a photo of it coming in, backing into its loading dock. That has been expanded now to show its exit movements, going through to the north, through an exit gate, and back out the main parking area to the road. They've also... Is it broken asphalt?
So they'd
I
enter
believe-
from the south.
Yes, and that was shown originally, they enter through the south, in between employee parking spaces, and then continue its movement. One thing we're working on getting clarification is how much of this area is going to be pavement versus gravel and broken asphalt. We're going to clarify that for the board. One thing we wanted to revisit with you was the matter of this southern parking area and also the item of landscaping. Staff met at PRC yesterday and still had some concerns about this area being both a parking area and the main delivery entrance for all the vehicles.
Why?
There are potential conflicts even with employee parking here. We cannot guarantee that it will always be an employee there. humans are humans. But to avoid conflicts in the right-of-way and in the effort to continue to make the right-of-way area better than what it is today as part of the expansion to the pre-existing use, staff is supportive of relocating this parking area to the north area by expanding the parking area here into what is a vehicle storage area now, or what would be a vehicle storage area beyond the fence. Wanted to get the board's thoughts on that. Can you scroll back down?
How many deliveries per day and at what times are they looking at for these trucks coming through? And I mean, that's an 18-wheeler, so is that constant, every 20 minutes?
We've seen several of them before. If you pull up the responses to comments, Doug, if you don't mind, I don't have them printed. Should be one. Please tell me we have. There we go. Let's scroll down. Wait a minute. Don't have the email in there. Give me 1 minute, please, if you don't mind. The applicant did provide responses today for that.
Would it be inactive projects?
It's probably not in there. Hold on. Just gotta find it. Alright, so I've just pulled up their email. This is in response to some of the tabling resolution items. They gave us details about the max number of employees on site, max number of customers, and shipping vehicles, as well as frequency. And I'm reading the email now. Average weekday deliveries, 3 tractor trailers and 10 standard box trucks, including UPS and FedEx. For Saturday, it is rare that there will be any tractor trailer deliveries, and the average is 2 standard box truck deliveries.
So, tractor trailer every other day. And 10 regular box trucks, so per week. So that's 2 a day. So you got FedEx and UPS coming in.
Yeah, we have
Once a day?
average weekday deliveries is that 3 tractor trailers and 10 standard box trucks.
Oh, average weekday.
Yes.
Okay, so that's
Sorry
3 a
about that.
day.
Correct.
And 10. Okay, so
Which
if
I would
that's 10,
imagine
that's
are
like
spread
1
out.
an hour, one every 30 minutes, roughly.
Oh,
I'm just getting-
a vehicle in general, not 18-wheeler, I'm
right.
sorry.
Yeah, so
It's
you have a
active.
truck coming in. It is, but it's.
It is and it isn't?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Sure.
not like, FedEx hub in Memphis or something,
Very true.
Or outside my building at Christmas time where the post office is, and there's like just constant trucks.
Yeah. We
So
wanted,
I guess
we
I just wanted to
bring it up.
get perspective on moving the parking.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the main reason that you guys felt that was?
That's one of them, and also because they do state in the responses that currently there are 37 employees on site. No new employees are anticipated at this time.
So there's 15 spaces
That
at the
allocates
south.
15. You're already going to have a good portion up at the main parking area to the north as well.
So if you can park close to your car, if you're working in that southern building,
Yep.
you can park close to the car.
Is that fence and stuff already up in the north? So they'd have to move the
That
fence?
they would. That fence is not completely installed. They basically have the framing for it. That's that part beyond that stone parking area that's there now, where there's a fence. Again, this is a talking point that we wanted to revisit.
Okay. What do you guys think?
They've done a lot of investing in the sidewalks and things, making it safe travel from the parking to the building.
Yep.
They've improved the 18-wheeler. So I'm just on the 18-wheeler, they pull in from the south, they go around the building, through the parking lot, go around the building, then they stop and back in.
Correct.
Is that the only bay door there that they can use? Garage door?
Without pulling up the render, I believe so. That's kind of like the main loading dock area. There might be a couple bays. I'd have to pull up the renderings
So that's
to look at it, but that is the primary
That could be the
movement.
extreme. It
That-
could be loading docks along the entire thing, but that's probably the most difficult one to get to.
Yeah,
Well, it's still gonna be an entrance. I mean, they're not changing that. They just wanna move the cars, the employee lot to the bit north.
Right.
So that's still gonna be an entrance for the tractor trailers. It's not gonna have any
Right.
effect on them. It's just gonna do away with the employee parking lot.
have you ever had 18-wheeler access to a parking lot before like this? I know Wegmans does, they go
Oh, I mean,
around.
yeah, I would say a lot of commercial areas do have that, and I'm sure
Okay.
they're pushing their employees to park in that way, because they're the ones aware of the tractor trailer coming through there.
What's been their reaction to this suggestion? Have
It was
we
just-
suggested it to them?
It was just brought up recently. I
Okay.
briefly spoke with their engineer today and said we would bring it to the board for further discussion if it needs to be captured in some form of writing from the board or not, if you decide to make a recommendation or ask that it be changed.
Okay. I mean, I have to say, I don't feel strongly either way.
Okay.
I'm kind of ambivalent on the whole thing.
I mean,
I'm
they're
trying to use that
showing
word
all
a
the
few times
turning.
tonight. Nothing.
Sorry. But they're showing the appropriate movement, so again, this is just, came up at PRC, I wanted to bring it up to the board.
Yeah, as long as it's not a hardship, I mean, you know, ask them what they think, you know, on the recommendations of the committee, and see what the hardship it might be to move. I don't know how much it would be to move that fence back in, because especially if they're using that for storage, I mean,
Well, right, so you could argue that we're potentially taking away income-producing
storage area.
for them,
Exactly.
and making it more inconvenient for their employees that work in the southern building.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's where all the employees, I've been there before, and that's where the main offices are on that end of the building, the cafeteria, you know, right
And they all
now.
kind of go through here.
Yeah,
Right. It's the main foot traffic all the way through there. Okay.
see
So
what
if
they
you guys
say.
feel strongly about it, you know, I don't wanna rain on your parade, really, but
If you want, they can come from staff and we can ask them to at least look into it.
that's fine.
All right.
You
Next
guys good with
question.
that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Go with that.
I didn't mean to derail.
No, that's good. It's good. It's conversation. The other item I wanted to bring up was the topic of landscaping. We haven't really gone into it too deep, and it hasn't been shown a lot on the plans to great details with planting schedules, so on and so forth. We really just have new grassed areas right now. Something we brought up at PRC as well is potentially adding either some tree plantings here or some ground shrubs here to define that as a permanent landscaped area, and how the board would feel about that.
I think
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, no, that, to me, that means a lot more than moving the parking lot.
Okay. And we will capture that and ask for a landscape plan in that area for your review. Let's see here. I have no other updates right now, other than that they will be going to the zoning board next week to begin that public hearing process for the expansion to the pre-existing non-conforming use. After that, I know this board has expressed setting up a site tour, and I believe the zoning board would as well, and I would look to get that scheduled as quickly as possible after the zoning board has had their meeting.
It's the 18th.
Correct, is the ZBA's meeting date.
Yeah.
Other than that, no updates, any questions from the board still?
I'm all set.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
To
I'll make the
table.
motion on the table.
Table?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Okay,
All right.
and we welcome Bob back.
Yeah, Bob, you wanna come back, and join us?
Yep. Our second table application, welcome back, Bob,
Thank you.
is the Scribner Road Cluster Subdivision, now known as Shady Rock Subdivision. Yeah. Tabling resolution. So we have received revised plans and responses to comments now. Key item there being the sidewalks have been added per our conversation and per the board's tabling resolution, where, I will draw them, we have a sidewalk one side internally along the frontage, and proposing the extra 120 feet of sidewalk to the existing crosswalk that leads to the middle school across the street.
Does the town have the right of way for that, or the,
We,
you know, easement or whatever that is required?
It should be in the right of way.
it's located in the right of way, but any easement that is necessary, the town would secure
Okay,
to have that done. And they still do need to obtain a sidewalk waiver from the town board. However, part of that discussion will be the benefit of the additional sidewalk to connect to the crosswalk there. So that process is underway, but again, this was part of the board's conversation, and the applicant had no problem offering that on the plan.
okay.
Next, landscape plan. John grading. There's a lot of lines on this one. With regards to landscaping, the plan has been enhanced to include some buffer plantings
Yeah,
along
see
the east
Eastern,
and north property lines,
okay.
particularly around the Hammerhead turnaround, and to provide some buffering to the existing home to the east.
Okay,
They've maintained 2 street trees per lot, and we have passed this along to your landscape consultant for his review and consideration.
okay, great.
Any immediate thoughts and concerns about the placement of the plantings, or does that meet kind of the goal of what you had?
I think it speaks well for Mr. Philippone's desire to work well with the neighborhood. Yeah,
I'm also
yeah.
We had one other item that came in as well. We received a letter from the Trails Committee for this project, requesting that the board consider making a condition, or at least consider reviewing the thought of potentially expanding trails or providing a trailway, trail path through this project to allow people to get to this proposed sidewalk on Scribner and to the school. As you know, there isn't a permanent, there's no sidewalk in place on the west side of Scribner or the north side of Atlantic in this immediate area. You have to do a couple crosswalk movements to get there.
I think it's a great idea. Is there a way to make it more than just dirt, or, you know, something that would be usable in the winter?
I think so. That would fall to the Trails Committee and town staff to make that a more permanent pathway. We spoke at PRC this week about offering that on the dedicated land to the town with this project that would have the stormwater management facility, since there's an owned strip between lots 12 and 13. With proper monumentation, you can clearly identify and delineate the land, as well as kind of that trail leading to the back, which leads into, was it Fallbrook back there?
Yes.
The Fallbrook neighborhood?
Is there a way to come out on the other side?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we zoom into this area here, here's the site, and where Doug's pointing, where I'm pointing, that's all town land. And eventually that leads to that pond on Atlantic, where there are sidewalks available. There are sidewalks in Treebrook, Fallbrook neighborhood.
So basically, you could go from Fallbrook Circle
Correct?
all the way out to Scribner, right through the
Yes.
nice little scenic pathway,
Yep, and you could also travel
all the way
to the
over to
west.
Treebrook or over to the pond over there and to Atlantic Ave.
and right over to Central School District headquarters.
Huh.
If you're supportive of this, we can certainly include it in the.
Absolutely.
yeah,
I
resolution.
am. Anybody have a problem with that?
idea.
I think it's a great idea.
All right.
Yeah,
With that being said,
hopefully the neighbors are.
we don't. All that's left really is the final review of the trees, which is subject to the landscape consultant's review as part of pre-Mylar, which is
Yeah. that's
Not-
fine.
different from any other application.
Did we ask to have a draft
Yes.
resolution?
Yep, we do have a draft approval that was ready for you, so, and the EAF as well. So if the board did want to make a decision tonight on this project, you do have that ability, unless there's other information you want.
You guys ready to go on this, or?
Condition on landscaping?
Yeah, and I like the idea of that path too.
Yeah.
Are we seriously considering the path? I mean,
Yeah, we would
or
look
we
into it.
condition it, and then we can always,
The condition would be that the developer work with the town to establish that trailway,
yeah.
trail path through that piece of the property, as part of the construction of the site. It wouldn't be
Yep.
something that's after the houses are in. Homeowners would have to be aware that that is
Part of the deal.
plan for
Yeah,
that.
right.
Also,
Yeah, they think they're living in Barrington or something.
one last question before any vote. The treed area in the back of lot 13, beyond the creek, we previously talked about doing either a conservation easement or a deed restriction. I do know that the developer would certainly put a deed restriction on it, preventing any development of that property. However, I was curious if the board would like to also use a conservation easement to protect that wooded area, and keep it natural as part of the benefit of 278.
I would say yes.
Okay.
Agreed?
Yes.
One question on getting back to the pathway. If it's in close proximity to two house lots, in the past, for other developments, has there been any fencing or anything that is typically,
We've looked at
Put in-
that. Sometimes it's usually like a split rail fence or something to delineate it.
yeah,
We have done split rails.
Yep, and we thought about actually kind of, in the short term, at least marking up here,
Yeah, a little monument or something like
a
that.
monument, like a
Yeah.
split rail corner
Yeah.
situation to kind of note
Okay.
that that's I'll call
but
it a
that's kind of the
trailhead.
way,
Exactly.
Yeah.
okay.
And then there would be markers at these corners so that owners know that this is town land and also part of that system, so you can kind of connect the dots, if you will.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for the split rail fence and the landscaping?
At first, typically, that falls on the developer as part of the project. After that, to the town, obviously, because it's town land.
Doesn't the trail committee maintain those?
Yes.
Once it's, yeah, once
They
it's
work
in
with
place.
the Parks
Yeah.
Department to
Okay.
maintain that.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
The one
Matt.
between Scarborough and Embry is split rail fence and landscaping that they did between those locations, the path between the houses.
Mm-hmm. So we've done it
And it's
before.
worked out well.
Yeah. As long as it's visible to people, it usually works out well.
Right. Okay, anything
Thank you.
else?
Those were all the items I had on this
All right, so
project.
we got the EAF.
Correct?
So we want to move to
I'll move to
authorize.
approve the EAF.
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
Okay. Jim's not here, so do we want to, somebody want to move to
I'll move
approve
to
it
approve.
I'll second.
with the conditions that we discussed?
Bill and Bob.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
Okay, we got about
I can do the next one.
5 minutes.
I can do the next one in 5 minutes.
Okay.
The next application is for Crown Point, Section 4. We have received the revised plans, we have received responses to comments, and right now we are working with the developer to finalize what his initial plans are, or his intentions are to actually dedicate the pond to the town, and as opposed to an easement. The pond was relocated, and I should note this out, the pond was relocated from what was, I'll call it lot 405 and 404, it spanned two properties. It's now been relocated to within the 100-year floodplain buffer area,
Okay.
which is allowed by the DEC. It still requires a permit process, just like it would for installing the sanitary sewer through here. It would also back to another wetland area that was created as part of Section 2. But this is now located on one property, and again, is proposed to be turned into town dedicated land, so it would sit on its own parcel. So lot 406 would lose some of its land as part of that, but still be a substantially sized lot. That's the big update with that. It was the only question we didn't really have answered when we last spoke about this. And Mike, was there anything else?
Do you want that answered before we approve, or
Town engineer
your-
was comfortable with it, whichever
so
way
if
it
you
goes.
condition it or something?
Mhm.
You're good with that? 'Cause
Yeah.
we have that,
Okay.
you got the draft, we might as well
Mm-hmm.
get it moving forward.
And it's the last section of the subdivision, and that was the
Yeah.
last component that we
Okay.
had to review as staff, and very close to it. So we have EAF, we don't need an EAF for this actually.
'Cause
That was done
before.
at
Yeah.
overall, so just the approval resolution.
Okay, I will move to approve the approval resolution
For Crown
for
Point.
the comments.
I'll second it.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Okay. We got 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes. We're gonna have to get back to loop over Beano afterwards.
Yeah, we have some people that want to come in and get seated, so
Okay. All right,
take a little break and move on up.
we will break and reconvene up at the dais at 7 o'clock. Hey everyone, and welcome to the April 11th, 2019 meeting of the Penfield Planning Board. We will begin the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone, thank you for coming tonight. We have 4 items on our agenda. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the process, Zach will read the applications and describe them. The applicant will come up to the podium, put their drawings up on the whiteboard, and describe what they propose to do. The board will then ask what questions we have, and then we'll open it up to you folks in the audience for public comment, which is one of the main reasons that we're here. So if you'd like to comment, please either, is there paper slips out
We'll check.
in the front? If there should be a little bin on the table right by the door that you can either put your name on or just raise your hand when we open it up to public comment, and I'll call on you. If I call on you, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then address your comments to the board, not to the applicant. And also, please silence any mobile devices or anything else that's going to disturb the meeting. And with that, Zach, please read our first application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Application number 1, Marquez & Associates, PC, 930 East Avenue, Suite 1000, Rochester, New York, 14607. On behalf of Richard Smith, requests under Chapter 250, Articles 11-11.2, 12-12.2, and 6.6.2 for preliminary final subdivision site plan and EPOD permit approval for a 4-lot single-family residential subdivision with associated site improvements on a 4.3-acre property located at 280 Panorama Trail. The property is now or formerly owned by Richard Smith and zoned R120. Application number 19P-0008, SBL number 123.16-1-22.
Good evening. My name is Chris Nadler. I'm an attorney representing Richard Smith, the owner of the property at 280 Panorama Trail. Mr. Smith is here with us tonight. He's also joined by Jim Liebel, our builder, and Larry Heiniger, our engineer. Larry's put a lot of work into it, getting together a really detailed subdivision plan, as you can see. Really explains what kind of, it's a complicated site, but I think he's come up with a really good plan for a simple 4-lot subdivision. We're here tonight looking for an EPOD permit, and I think Larry will be able to explain why that's justified in this situation, and we're looking for preliminary site plan approval. Larry's going to give a brief presentation on the proposed subdivision plan and its compliance with the EPOD permit requirements, and then open it up to questions from the board. With that, I'll ask Larry to come on up and give you our presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris. I think you're probably going to want me to use this
If you got a green light, you're good.
test. Okay.
Just want to make, if you don't, can you guys hear in the back? If
All
he
right.
talks into the microphone?
Okay.
We're good? Okay.
All right. Well, I'll talk up too. All right. Starting left to right, this first shot is what we'll call the phase one, which is to build the road and the sanitary sewer and the water and this 3 terrace retaining wall, because we want to stay away from the storm sewers. Yes.
Our mission control from downstairs can't hear you.
Okay, this is not
I think the
working,
mic is
right?
not working properly.
Okay. We'll work here.
Pardon for the technical difficulties.
No
here.
problem.
Do we have another microphone up here?
That one's on.
It's on.
This one's on, Brian.
I didn't think it was on.
I'll bring up another one, so. Yeah.
Bring me up the blue one. Okay. All right, so on the south side of the road, that's the 1-on-3 slope up in near the road, then to a 1-on-2. On the north side, we're doing this 3 terrace retaining wall. The heights of the wall are about to my forehead, and then they go back 8 feet, shown here. And so they're battered back 1 inch per block. And then we have our pond, which will buffer the flows coming into the site and a little bit of our flow. That's about it. There's a hydrant down at the cul-de-sac, and once this is built, if someone wants to build a house, I've done these conceptual layouts with building pads 46 by 46 and 2-car garages. They may do it the way I laid it out, they may not, you know, who knows. On the other drawing on the right, that was our EPOD, where the lower left, we showed slopes that were greater than 15% per Penfield code. We showed water course protection, even though they're not on your water course EPOD map. And we showed land unsuited for development, which is based on slopes greater than 1 vertical, 3 horizontal per the New York State code. In the upper, here comes a mic. Yep, it's working. Okay, so up here, the color drawing, and I'll move over here, was our tree survey. And Mike Marcus said about 270 trees. Now, Rich is an arborist. He owns Arbor Tree up in Webster, Basket Road. So he went down and flagged all the trees 8 inches or larger. Mike went down with GPS, located all the trees. So once we had the trees located, we left this grove of hickory here. So that is undisturbed green. The center of the cul-de-sac will be undisturbed, and all this darker green area around will be undisturbed. The lighter green will all turn back into grass or plantings. This is the bio retention area. This is the water garden, which are in our SWIP, part of the green infrastructure required by DEC. So I have a few speaking notes. Our access is off Panorama Trail, town dedicated road. The private drive meets town requirements for both width and grade. There's a 2.7% area of 25 feet at the top of the drive to stop and observe traffic. The New York State DOT site distances are met for a 35-mile-per-hour road. using the AASHTO requirements for driveways, the site distances provided are more than 200% of what is required for a driveway. The longitudinal grade of 9.7% maximum is less than the town requirement of 10%. The cul-de-sac has an outer radius of 45 feet, which is required for a town-dedicated cul-de-sac. This is a private cul-de-sac. The pavement width is 20 feet. That was done as the fire marshal wanted more pavement for turning radiuses, and it will be signed for one-way traffic counterclockwise. So I anticipate that when people are coming to their house, this person will pull into his driveway, he will go to the right, go into his driveway, go to the right, go to the right, and when they leave, they will go that way. The water is from Monroe County Water Authority. There is plenty of pressure up at the top of the hill, and you're going to gain about 17 pounds of pressure going down to the cul-de-sac. Right now, it's planned to be a new 8-inch main, and it'll be tapped into the 10-inch main on Panorama Trail. So I've been talking to John Hodgetts at the Monroe County Water Authority. Be sending him plans next week. Sanitary sewer will be individual grinder pumps. We originally thought it might be a town-dedicated main with grinder pumps. And in talking to some contractors, said, why don't you just do all individual? They have their own individual force main, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. We size by E1. And that way, if someone's check valve fails, the other 3 homes are not pumping sewage into their grinder pump, into their basement, basically. So you're one trench, but we'll be laying 4 HDPE, high-density polyethylene lines that will then tie into the town dedicated sewer on Panorama. Drainage, there's 2 off-site streams of note. Even under 100-year flow, this stream and this stream, 0 CFS. I think this is 0.06. This is the greatest one, comes from Clark Road. This has a little bit of flow. This one is totally bypassing the pond. Totally bypassing. This one is going through a 24-inch culvert under this driveway and then into the pond. The reason for the 24-inch culvert is certainly not the capacity of the pipe. It's for the headwater condition. Same thing if you're going through a toll booth on the thruway. You got to go 20 miles an hour through that toll booth. You can't go 65. So getting into the pipe, I did not want to build up a high level of surcharge. I could have used an 18 and driven the water up, and it still wouldn't have crested the road, but I decided to use a 24, so it's going to go through real low, okay? For 60 feet of pipe, why skimp on the diameter of the pipe and create a potential problem? Even in a 100-year event, which would be catastrophic for the whole town and the surrounding towns, that pipe will not have a problem. Okay, so the design has a larger flow for a 10-year storm of 1.9 CFS entering the pond. And to give you an idea, 1.9, the capacity of a 12-inch pipe at minimum slope is 2.5. So a lesser engineer might stick a 12-inch pipe in there and say, hey, it meets a 10-year flow. I actually looked at the headwater condition for a 100-year pipe. The pool elevation, static, no rain, 2.9825, has a surface area of 5,500 square feet and a storage volume of 16,872. And if you think about it, the surface area times 3, so you get into conics, but it's like 1/3, 3 to 1. In a peak storm, the surface area is greater and the volume is greater, and I've got the numbers, but you don't need to know that. So the pond, the bioretention, the rain garden reduced the 10-year site outflow to 44% of the existing flow, and the 100-year site outflow to 87% of existing. I know you have a 24-inch concrete culvert under Panorama Trail that was put in by, I assume put in by Emil Mueller in about 1952, and I know that you've sleeved some of these other ones with 18-inch high-density poly. In my professional opinion, you could do that with this pipe because the flows are being reduced in this pond. And once we build this and you have access down to that point, you would then be able to get in there and take care of the problem that you've got. So when I tell you about these reductions, much of this is from the off-site contribution coming in up here. For on-site, The 100-year site outflow is reduced to 39% of existing. Traffic, we'll touch on it. 4-lot, single-family sub for the AM peak, 7 to 9 in the morning. There'll be 0.75 trips per dwelling unit, of which 75 will leave. So 3 cars are going to leave over a peak hour, or 1 every 20 minutes. For the PM peak, there will be 1.01 trips per dwelling unit, of which 64 will be entering, so 2.56 cars over the peak hour period, or 1 every 23 minutes. So that's traffic. Very small, but I figured I might as well document it, get it on the record. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Bill, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I've got a few questions, and the town also has pointed us to a few.
Make
And
sure you speak it.
there's a lot of concern regarding the private driveway coming off Panorama Trail going to the houses, both on building it, the snow removal, who's going to be responsible for that, are there going to be any protections for people driving off of the driveway, say in the wintertime, guardrails, for instance? So there's the first 3 questions I have.
Well, as far as the plowing, it would be an HOA. This being 4 lots, it would be an HOA filed in Albany. Okay? We
Okay.
could put guardrails up at where the slope goes from a 1-on-3 to a 1-on-2, and so that would be perfectly reasonable. Actually, I thought about this, the chances of someone driving off, I actually looked at a section of Panorama Trail, driving off Panorama Trail down that slope is actually much greater. You're dealing with higher traffic speeds and a steeper slope. So, but guardrails are not a bad idea.
What about building of that 9.7 degree driveway? And how is that going to impact Panorama Trail? Are you going to have to close off lanes? What's the schedule? Anything surrounding that you could share would be helpful.
Well, Rich has, being a contractor, he has contacts, and there's a lot of earth available this construction season. So that would be coming in truckloads that would then back in and begin dumping over the slope, and then that would be compacted in lifts and pushed down by a dozer, and you'd be building your embankment, and at some point, then you'd have to start building your retaining walls. So that's how that would work.
Okay, how long will that take?
We're going to put a haul road in first.
Okay, well, first you're going to build a haul road, but the haul road is going to have to be in the same location. It's going to be steeper than 9.7%, but first you have to do a haul road. I would say it's probably going to take a total of 6 weeks.
And what's the impact on Panorama Trail for those 6 weeks?
You might have a truck every half hour, depending on where they're coming from and how many trucks.
But there's
If you could come on up,
Sure, sorry.
Chris, thanks.
There's shoulder area in the right of way, so you're not going to have trucks backing, you're not going to have trucks blocking traffic. They'll pull off the road they're going to dump from off the road, not from in the road. There's enough shoulder there for just about exactly 1 dump truck.
So you're not going to have to close off any lanes of Panorama Trail for the construction of the driveway?
That's not our intent, and I don't believe that we would at all.
Okay,
I just scaled it. The shoulder's 15 feet wide.
okay.
You have 10-foot lanes. I would probably recommend a flag person while they're doing this work. Okay, but we wouldn't be closing a lane.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there any thought about putting lighting along the driveway or maybe up on the corner of Panorama Trail and where the driveway comes out? A post light, anything like that?
Good question. We just finished the lighting plan for a project in Geneseo, so I'm totally up on lighting. We could do some colonial 18-foot high LED posts. They would be about 75 feet apart, and it would give you very adequate illumination down the road.
Okay,
And so I could add that to the drawing, and we would figure out how that would be distributed to the HOA. You know, when I talk about this retaining wall, you know, that, when you are over here in this lot looking across the pond at this retaining wall that I've shown planted, Rich is planning on planting it up with holly bushes, you know, like a dark green, forever green against the brown or the gray, so it should be quite striking. Help me with my math. If I've got 75-foot spacing on a 450-foot road, I think I'm going to have about 6 or 7 posts. Make sense? 7 times 7, 49?
yeah,
Okay. So I think that's a good idea.
okay. How much fill is required for the roadway?
How much fill?
Yeah, how many yards of dirt?
Rich has a contact over at Ramsey Construction, Steve Burgoyne, and he did a preliminary of about 15,000 cubic yards.
15,000.
Now, that might be more like 20, because originally, if you remember, I had a geogrid wall that was up to 27 feet. And, you know, that would be like me painting my house and falling off the ladder up at the peak. And Rich said, well, why don't we go with some terraces? It's going to cost more money, but that's equivalent to me falling out of my bunk bed when I was a little kid, and you're going to land on soft dirt or pricker bushes. So we went with a more expensive option. So maybe it's going to be 20,000 yards, but the fill is available. There's also fill available in the pond.
Okay.
So we may be generating some on-site fill. At some point, it will not be viable, or it'll only be able to use for toe of slope. It won't be able to be used for structural fill under a roadway.
So the trucks that are going to bring the fill to the site, how many yards can you get in one of those trucks?
9, 10 yards per truck.
9 or 10 yards per truck? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. The lots you've got with the pads on there, how much usable yard is going to be around those lots? Usable land?
Well, you know, this is not the kind of place you buy if you want a croquet field. You go up to Village Green and you can buy something up there. But to give you an idea, you know, I got to go to the scale here. This lot is 100 feet across of clear area, and from the backyard out to the front about 100, so it's about 100 by 100. Same thing here. This is not to scale. Well, I guess this is to scale. It's a 50 scale. You just got to change things. So this person, again, it's about 100 feet, 100 feet. And you notice I showed a little patio in the back on all of those?
I noticed that, yep.
And I think they're scaling out at something reasonable. I think I scaled them at about 12 by 18. And again, that's with grading. If you wanted to build a little bit of a retaining wall, you could push the patio, you could do all kinds of, call Bruce Zaretsky, that's not a plug, but he could do all kinds of wonderful things for you.
Okay. Okay. The steep slopes, what's your plan to protect the steep slopes during the construction phase?
Okay. Good question, and I'm glad you asked it, because we are filling against this slope. We're taking the steepness out of this slope. This slope, these slopes here are what I would say is pretty darn close to their angle of repose, which means their safety factor is 1.0. Okay? We're going to fill over here. So this slope right now that's at angle of repose, we're not cutting here. So once we come through this area with fill, there are no steep slopes. It's just this one area that we need to get through. And we could, actually, I had a conversation bring dirt in to take away the steepness of this slope, kick out the toe, and solve part of the problem, there is a undercut on the storm sewer that you can stand in. I don't know if you're familiar with that problem. The storm sewer is underwashing. You can
Okay.
actually go stand in the washout, and the town can't get there to fix it. So I had a conversation with someone that said, you know, we could actually bring your slope out, set this manhole, get together with DPW and say, now that we got access, how do you want to solve this problem for good? And as I said earlier, you could actually sleeve that 24 with an 18 like you did down the road by Ken Hershey's house.
Okay,
But you got to be able to get down into the dell.
okay.
So that answer, we're not cutting, people have said, well, can't you tuck it in? No, we can't tuck it into the hill. We are going to
Yeah,
fill, compact, do it right.
okay. What about emergency vehicle access? Has this been approved by the fire marshal?
I have not seen any comments. Obviously, his approval is a signature on the plans. But this meets your town standards, exceeds for width, it's less. The radiuses are, I think, about 150 feet, so it meets radiuses.
Okay.
I do, Larry, we do have one comment that I know it probably didn't make it onto the PRC memo. I know the fire marshal was concerned about leaving the middle of the cul-de-sac landscaped just for accessibility, if you do have a large vehicle down there, and kind of limiting it just to the paved area as proposed. So that is a comment that I wanted to bring up, just to bring your attention as we go forward.
I've got a thought on that. My thought is you could approve it like this, subject to the fire marshal's, signature on the plan, and we can work that out with him, because I think this actually is going to give him the big vehicles, and some of it can be essentially the same as like a land-banked parking spot where they can drive over it. The actual landscaping would be tucked in.
Well, as proposed, that's quite a depressed area where you wouldn't really drive through it. It's not just flat grass, so that's an item we wanted to review.
And that's my point. I think we could work it out so that the fire marshal would be happy with it if we had to bring that. I'm glad you brought it up, because I think we could bring that depression up if that's what the fire marshal was looking for.
Okay. If I was to jump in here, I've shown this with 3 conifers in the middle where it's undisturbed. After I'd drawn those, I thought Rich, again, being an arborist, might want to put a specimen tree there. Today, another developer called me and wants me to put 2 copper beech on his project in Geneseo. So whether it be a copper beech, I'm not sure. It all depends on the soil type. But we could go from 20 feet to 24 feet and bring it in so that there's even more pavement while still maintaining a big enough planting area that a tree with deep roots would not be strangled. Because, in my opinion, having a cul-de-sac here, I mean, yeah, I guess you could go play badminton or tennis on your cul-de-sac, but given the nature of the project, having this thing, a heat island all paved, as I said 9 months ago, flies in the face of green infrastructure. So I'd be happy to meet with the fire marshal of how he would stage, what equipment he would stage, and try to come up with a solution that works.
Okay, that's all I have, AJ.
Just speaking to that, would you be open to considering something like geogrid or something around the inner diameter of that circle to,
I'd mentioned that before, and of course, geogrid, the water can get through it. So you
Right.
could plant a tree, in a tree island that's maybe a 10-foot radius.
and the truck
And then geogrid around that for
Right.
another 12 feet to finally get to your asphalt. So you created this kind of special donut.
correct?
And you still get the the specimen tree there, and I think that would be a really good idea.
Okay.
And then the other thing is if they have parties, then they can park there,
Right,
right?
right. That actually answered my first question. How wide is that road proposed, that single lane around the cul-de-sac?
It's 20 feet wide.
So the entire drive is 20 feet and the cul-de-sac portion is 20 feet? Or is the cul-de-sac, because you mentioned that the cul-de-sac would kind of be one way?
The drive is...
Designed to be one way or suggested to be?
The drive is 16. It could be widened to 18 if you wanted.
Okay,
And the cul-de-sac, again, for the turning radiuses, is 20. And I took a 30-foot wheelbase vehicle out of my turning templates, and, you know, this is your town radius for your cul-de-sacs. So if your fire trucks can go to a regular cul-de-sac, like right up here at Hickory Circle or Huntington Circle, and they can make that radius with their truck, they would be able to make this radius here.
okay.
But you know, if GeoGrid, tucking it in, not necessarily a bad idea, because they go down there, they want to muster, they need room, fine.
So with a 16-foot wide driveway that's 450 feet long, two cars pass each other. Let's say you have two guys with dually pickup trucks. Are they going to be able to get by, or is one guy going to have to back up? What's the
They should be
story
able
with
to
that?
get by, but we can widen it to 18, and we can also do a reinforced turf along the shoulders.
Okay. And can you,
Or do a stone shoulder, but I mean, if you can go down the thruway or on a normal road, you're talking about a car at peak times, one every 20 minutes.
right, I
your
understand that.
neighbors-
I understand that there's not
Right.
going to be, you know,
A lot of
a
cars.
lot of traffic, but there will be that point where, oh gee, Joe's leaving right when I'm getting home, and we meet kind of right in the middle. And what happens? You know, you have to accommodate that
They rub mirrors.
eventuality. Well, and that's, so, can you,
Dually with a horse trailer?
yeah, can you describe what that driveway would look like? I mean, my guess is a lot of people are trying to imagine a lot of people are trying to imagine how on earth it's going to be built and what it will look like. Is it going to be some sort of almost like a trestle where you have a drop off here and a drop off there?
No.
Is it drop off here and slope going up, so you're kind of in the side of the hill at that, on the, say, the south side?
Well, the south side it's a 1-on-3 slope out to about 25 feet off center line, and then it goes to a 1-on-2 slope to stay in the property. You know, the road could be nudged a few feet to the north. Burroughs Hills Drive, I think, is pretty close to 9% going down Burroughs Hills.
So that was going to be another question.
I think
An
Lost
example of
Mountain
something
Manor,
that's,
going up Lost Mountain Manor is pretty close to 9-10%. And we are, as I said before, we're flat up here, and then we were 9.7, and then when you get down to the, just past 350, so actually when you get down to this point here, we start to flatten the slope out to 5.8%, and then across the cul-de-sac, 2%. So you're not coming down and slamming into a flat spot. It's a general transition,
more, okay.
okay? It's a landing.
Larry was able to explain it to me as a non-engineer with this. This is, if you've walked down there, this is very steep. And this dotted line here is the existing grade, right?
Yes.
And then so the solid line above that is where we're going to fill to make that slope So that's going to be the actual slope. This is what's existing now that's very steep if you've ever walked on it. So it turns out not to be, a ski slope like it feels like it would be. That was how Larry got me to wrap my head around it, that it isn't going to be, just a bobsled track.
And as a comparison, you mentioned Burroughs Hills and Lost Mountain Trail as similar,
Yes.
similar grade.
Yes, and there are
That
towns.
someone could drive over and say, okay, this is what this is proposed to be
Yes,
in a similar condition.
right. I can take a look at the USGS maps for Burroughs Hills. I did it for a court case back in '95. What is steep? And I remember going to Burroughs Hills and looking at the USGS quad map for that. The other thing you'll find is you go down into the hillier towns, Parrington and Victor, their town codes, I think Walworth also has a 10% maximum grade on their, in fact, I'm sure they do, on their streets. So you go out to places where there's more drumlin topography and you have steeper grades. We're just not used to it here.
Right. Okay. Thank you for those answers. You'd mentioned in your presentation that, and I'm not sure if people totally caught this, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 10-year storm flow offsite is proposed to be 44% of what it is now? Did I hear that correct? So if during a 10-year storm event, you have X amount of flow off the site, after this, it would be lower by 56%? Cut in half or more?
Yes. The existing 10-year flow for the total site, for the total drainage basin of roughly 40-ish acres, is 0.95 cubic feet per second, so slightly under 1. And the proposed, as with the pond, all that, is 0.42. So 0.42 divided by 95 is 44%. So there's a significant reduction. In the 100-year, the existing is 11.84, so just under 12, and the proposed will be 10.35. And that's how you come up with the number I gave out, that it will be about 79%,
Okay.
okay?
Okay. Thank you for those figures.
The other thing is, a lot of this is due to the off-site contribution. If you only look at the site itself, the flows off the site are significantly reduced. And that's why we're taking this stream through that pond to act as a shock absorber. And given the outflows, the 100-year outflows, 10, 12 cubic feet per second, that's about half the capacity of that 24-inch storm sewer. Okay, so that's good. But you got to remember what's on the other side, that if you can reduce the outflow, you reduce the velocity in that stream heading down
All the way through.
the pure waters thing.
Okay. One other concern I think a lot of people have, which was touched on a little bit earlier, is the actual construction of the drive. And do you have, if you could potentially walk us through the process of, all right, we're starting today. What is that process like? How long does it take a truck to pull up, pull off onto the shoulder, and then what do they do to get that fill there? And how long does that process take per vehicle on average?
I would say a truck is going to pull up, going north, obviously. They're going to pull over. They might jockey a little bit in that 15-foot area so that their dump is pointing towards the top of slope.
Right,
They're
so they'd
gonna
be
open-
perpendicular then to Panorama Trail?
No, I'm just saying a little, because then they're going to dump and it's going to get pushed over the edge or it's going to fall over the edge, okay?
Okay, so they're not gonna back right up to they're gonna dump, their load would dump at the top of the slope and then it would be
Correct.
pushed over the edge? Okay.
Correct. So there'll be, in my mind's eye, there'll be a small dozer sitting here, they're gonna pull in there, they're gonna turn a little bit, dump the load, that dozer's gonna push it over the edge, they're gonna leave. They're gonna be there for 2-3 minutes max. Stop, dump, leave. And I would imagine that dozer operator would be the guy with the flag. So he's warning people. Then truck leaves, that flagman duty is all over. He gets on his machine and moves the dirt and waits for the next truck. Next truck might show up in 15 minutes, it might show up in 20 minutes. Depends. Rich had indicated there's earth from Webster. Rich, where else? Empire Boulevard. So it depends on the closeness, it depends on how many trucks, how long it's going to take.
So if then they would be heading potentially
back
south on Panorama Trail, or would they go over to,
No, they would go north on Panorama Trail up to the light at
So if they're-
Browncroft.
if they're coming from Webster, are they gonna take
They're going to have
590
to,
to
they're going to have to
441 or
have a
something?
route. They're going to have a route that gets them in that location. So they're going to have to come down 5 Mile Line, go down Old Penfield Road, come back up the hill.
Right? Because
Otherwise, they're going to go across traffic, then they're going to pull out against traffic,
Right.
and that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
That's-
the reason, I don't mean to belabor this, but.
No, that's
I'm
fine.
Just thinking through, if you mentioned 20,000 cubic yards of
Mm-hmm.
fill, and if a truck is 9 to 10 cubic yards, we're looking at 2,000 deliveries, right?
I ran that number once, like how much was off-site, how much was on-site, how much was in the pond, and then how much actually needs to be under the road bed of 18, let's say now 18 feet, and your load goes down at 2 vertical, 1 horizontal, the transmission of road. So everything outside of that, I'll just say can be fluff, but that can be material from the pond that needs to dry out, that's not going to be taking a structural load of an
Right.
H20 truck. And once we have a haul road in there, then they can actually go down the haul road and
Would
come
the
back
haul
up.
road be the same thing as the ultimate driveway?
It's going to be on the same
Kinda
route.
Yeah, I mean, when I mean the same thing, it's gonna be the same route and then gets final grading and
Right.
finished out, but it's not a separate and distinct.
No, there's
road from-
no other way to do it because you can't come straight down here. The only way to do it is to come in here, so the haul road has to be here. But maybe that'll be 12-15%
Mm-hmm.
is what it's going to be.
Right, because you can get construction equipment up
You
there.
get the equipment in there. Otherwise, you're going to bring stuff in with a Chinook helicopter, and it'll be like, Navy Seabees.
Right, right. Okay. So if we have 2,000 truck deliveries at about 3 minutes apiece,
Well, they won't.
that's,
Yeah, I mean, they'll be on site for 3 minutes. But they won't be every 3 minutes.
right. So we'll figure that, I mean, I'm just trying to,
Again, this could go,
figure out how much and how long.
this could go
that
on
process
for
will
6
take.
weeks to 2 months. I mean, this is like filling more than, not filling the inner loop was a lot more than this, but it was the same thing. I once had this conversation with Sandy Frankel in Brighton when a landscape architect was going to bring in like 6 feet of fill for her soccer fields rather than run a pipe to drain things. He was going to fill it with dirt and let it, and I told her, I said, well, this is what the earthwork would be. You'd have a truck every 20 minutes for about 4 months, and based on $10 a yard off-site dirt, this would cost you about $1.8 million of dirt, so your landscape architect better hire someone that knows how to design storm sewers,
Right.
okay?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. I'd like to open it up to the audience right now. Thank you for your presentation. And first person I have, and please forgive me if I butcher your name. Don't hold it against me. Lydia Sluzarek? Did I say that okay? Yes.
Sometimes there are names that are not easy to pronounce. My name is Lydia Sluzarek. Yeah. And we live at 270 Panorama Trail. We have lived at this location for the last 38 years. And during this time, obviously it's quite a long time, we have seen highs and lows in different situations that happened in that area. Let me mention 3. First, that it's of utmost concern is falling trees. The ground is very, very soft or movable, that every time there is a snowstorm or wind, heavy wind, we listen what and if there are trees falling down, because it's very, very, very loud, and the earth shakes, and we hope it's not going to fall on our house. So if you go into this area, you can see there are many, many trees that are either broken or fell down, especially on the slopes. In the flat area, this has been cleaned, so it's not as noticeable. But what I'm saying is any disturbance of the dirt and ground in that area, if not immediate, I'm pretty sure it's going to have dire consequences down the line, a few years down the line. So this is very, very important. We have a barrier in the back of our property. When we moved in, it was straight. Now the slope is like this.
So you're seeing erosion.
A lot. We have tried to help it, but it's a losing battle. So the houses down, if they are built over the years, could be subject to a problem, if not falling trees, of dirt moving. The second thing that I want to mention is flooding. It happens maybe once a year, but it's very, very bad. This area of Panorama Trail, it's actually a little valley. And there are times when water accumulates there, and it's very hard to dissipate this water.
You're talking on Panorama Trail.
On Panorama Trail. So the dirt is very wet and soft. So that's a problem that who knows how this is going to be addressed. And the third problem that I want to mention is safety. Safety going out of the driveway onto Panorama Trail. The road actually curves this way, coming from the north, and this way, going to the south. our driveway is very much open, so we can see traffic, and we have some space to judge whether there are cars or not. Even if cars are not visible, they can come in any time, and it's very hard from standstill position to move into the traffic either way, north or south. Even if there are 0.7 cars, as mentioned here, an hour, I'm not so sure. This is really an average, but when you actually have to go down, exit the driveway, it's very, very risky, and it has worsened over the years. And the last thing I want to mention, because it was noted here that there is a side to the road where big trucks can be parked momentarily or 3 minutes or so. Maybe there is space for it. However, the ground is very soft. We know it by our driveway, and our driveway is, and side of the property is actually on a flat surface. And when there are just SUVs or trucks that make a turn, we often see big ditches in the ground from the wheels of regular cars. So I just want to mention that being on a slope where the trucks are going to be parked to dump the dirt, I don't know how this is going to hold up.
Okay.
So I wanted to mention 3 things. I hope you'll take it into account.
Thank you.
And educationally, I am an engineer.
Thank you. Okay, we have, next up would be Ted Nixon.
Hi, I'm Ted Nixon. My wife is Kathy. We live at 326 Panorama Trail. So in between the 280, there's one house at 300, and then there's us. And we're up on the hill. So we are a neighbor. We abut the land that they're talking about here. I have 3 things also. One is, I don't know if there has been an environmental impact study on what would happen to the wildlife, the habitat that exists there. If there hasn't been, I think that that should be a real concern. Those of us who live there see those animals, we see the plants, we see, I mean, they're our neighbors. It's their land too. And I would very much be interested in seeing what a study has to say about that. Where do they go? Or can they live closer to these people? I don't know. Emergency vehicles. We had a chimney backup this winter, and it automatically reported, thanks to our security system, to the fire department, who showed up to deal with it. And they brought the big truck, and they took one look at our driveway in the winter and said, nope, we're not going to do that. So the guys lugged their way up and took their gear, and they were able to get the fan and put it in and take care of what it was. If they had had to, they could have gotten up, maybe, if the driveway was clear, and there's no guarantee, because as we know, 5 months out of the year, driveways aren't all that clear. And we have to make sure, we have to pay for our own private clearance, and I assume that's what the initials that they were talking about were saying. But, that's a concern. I would also concur about the shoulder. I walk or drive that area, and 15 feet sounds like a generous amount to describe what that shoulder looks like. I would also say about that, that is the low point on Panorama Trail, coming from both directions, from north and south. That is where the traffic is going to be going the fastest. Now, we have trouble getting out our driveway in the winter because the plows have to put the snow someplace, and where they generally put it is right in our line of sight looking to the south. So we have to either start back and get a run at it, or get the other side of the snow pile, and that's dangerous. It's, you know, many times I've just barely gotten in front of the traffic, and they're starting up the hill at our place, so they're going a little slower. That's a real concern to me. I think that that's a really dangerous spot. And the other thing, and I know scientifically, you know, you have to have 100-year occurrences and 10-year occurrences and all these other things, and I know that that's valid, or it has some validity, but, you know, every time we turn around nowadays, we have a 100-year incident happening. With flooding and hurricanes and things, you know, and, oh my, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, and we aren't going to have this happen again. Well, we are going to have it happen again. And I think I go back to a common sense lesson that I learned when I was a 12-year-old Boy Scout. And we went out and put our tents down. And I put mine down at the bottom of the hill. And we had a thunderstorm. And I took an unwanted trip inside of my tent, washed out in the thunderstorm. And it taught me that water flows downhill. Now, we're up at the top of the hill, so we see the water going down all the time. But water flows downhill. And if my scoutmaster asked me to pitch my tent where these houses are going to be, I'd say no. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else that would like to speak to this? Yes, sir, come on up.
My name's Sam Lembo, and I reside at 7 Hickory Lane with my wife. We've been there for 26 years. My house is, this house I assume is on Panorama here?
Yeah.
My house is right here. I've got an acre and a half right along the edge of this valley here. So I've looked down into this valley for 26 years, and it's never been dry. Never. I know you're putting a retention pond in here, but I'm trying to determine how much road, how many trees you're going to take out, because there is quite a bit of erosion. I agree with the woman that spoke first. Along these hills, it tends to stay soft. It slides down the hill. So your commentary about moving water around is crucial to this piece of land, because it is wet all year long, especially in this area right here. I agree also with what Ted said about wildlife. There's a lot of it. I had the 14 turkeys that come up my hill and walk around my house every day, walk back down the hill. They roost in the trees right behind the house. There's a lot of pileated woodpeckers, you know, the real woody woodpecker, in that area back there. I've been around Penfield since the early 60s. I grew up here. We used to play baseball down in that field. There's a big meadow down there. It's been, you know, forever wild, forever. And I just hate to see it change. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone? Sir, come on up.
Ron Stacy, 1 Hickory Lane. Hello. Right next door, a little bit above, a little bit north of the property, a little bit above the property. I want to say, I think a couple of words on behalf of the builder. Penfield residents are experiencing a lot of new home building. And it's hard to digest, at least for us, the amount of new building that's going on. We have experienced an increase in traffic, no doubt about that, in the Panorama Trail area, and so on and so forth, and there will be a continued increase in traffic. And that has nothing to do with this particular builder, we understand. The other thing I want to say on behalf of the builder is I think he could easily find a much better place to build than in a gully in a forest, that's hard. And people who look at the area say, what in God's name is anybody thinking about? It just seems so steep. It's a serious gully. Trees will fall on houses, as they have on our house. And a planting tree, somebody mentioned planting a tree, that's kind of ridiculous. Growing grass, there's going to be no sun. You're not going to grow any grass down there. From what I understand, the road going down there and the cul-de-sac, while it may be according to code, it's going to be very cozy. So I don't understand the techniques of it, but I think I'm with many people here in wondering how weird is this idea?
Thank you for your comments. Okay, would anyone else like to speak to this? Yes, ma'am?
Kathy Heineck, 15 Hickory Lane. My husband and I live in the house for 14 years, so we actually are next to other people that have just spoken. And I guess I have a really simple question. Why? Which follows up what was just said. It seems that it's just an area that is very, very natural, not suitable for houses, dark, damp, dreary. And I did speak the last time this came up and mentioned we left Brighton to come to Penfield for the land. And since then, I drive out Atlantic Avenue and 5 Mile Line Road. There at that corner, all the trees are gone and the houses are up. If we continue on out to 250, we have more land that's been taken away that's going to be built in more houses. So I think I would like to see this not happen. I'm sure that, as someone just mentioned, they could find another area to work. But I just hate to see the land. Sam just mentioned the turkeys, the deer. I had 2 baby fawns born in the backyard this year. And it's pretty natural and a pretty beautiful place to live. But I hate to see it destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes, ma'am, come on up.
Hello, I'm Helga Stresser. I live on 31 Hickory Lane, and I've lived there in the same house, and we built it for 52 years. So I pretty much beat everyone here. We have a lot of erosion on our land, and everybody does too in the back, and that's everywhere. You can't help that. And the other thing, I have a son who is grown up, doesn't live here anymore, but whenever he comes visiting with his 2 boys, they go down there and wander around, and when he still lived there, his school friends came and they went all over down there. And when I told him about this thing, he said to me, why in the world would anyone want to build houses in that swamp down there? And that's the experiences he still has, taking his boys down. It's swampy. And in the summer, beware of the mosquitoes. It's awful. Okay, that's all I have to, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Yes, come on up.
I'm Kathy Nixon. My husband just spoke a minute ago. And I just want to reiterate, when I've gone down into the gully or whatever, as we walk down, we actually have a natural path that goes down there. But as soon as we get off the path, the soil is so loose and fragile. And in fact, behind our house, we are losing soil all the time and losing trees constantly. Again, I think that reiterating on this, what other woman said is we are constantly hearing large branches, parts of trees, and entire trees falling down. So it's a pretty an unsettled area, and so I just really worry about that. I used to be a real estate agent. I know that there's always we're going to build our house here and then nobody else is going to build because it's not in our backyard, and I certainly don't think that that's my feeling at all. I understand from where these houses are going to be, we're not even going to see them from our house, but we will be impacted by people coming out of their driveway. But I really worry about the fragility of this area, and I really hope that there's been or going to be an environmental study of just how that's going to impact this area. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I'm Nancy DeRicky. My husband is Ron. We're the Hickory Lane contingent. But a couple of things. I would like to say what a creative job the architects have done. Really, engineer. Excuse me. Look, I'm complimenting you, okay? Because I've worked in the city, in the church where I worked, we had to go through this with some other building things. Two things. One is I mow lawn on Panorama Trail every week. And I'm very conscious of how that land is fragile, as you say, but how soft that is. And we just drove over to where your sign is today, and we parked on the road, and my tire was on the little curb. And that wasn't any 15 feet where we were parking. And I worry about accidents of people going to be turning in there and maybe not turning correctly. Those guardrails, would be a necessity all over. But the fragility of the land and the softness of it is a real concern. And I just also wonder about the moving the trees around, cutting the trees. The roots then would not hold the soil as much. And I think that would be a real concern, not just to the potential people who would be moving in. It would be a concern to those of us who live near there, we're trying to make sure that our land doesn't move too much. So I'd ask for a little bit more research on how short how unwide, how narrow that shoulder is, actually all around Panorama Trail, and it looks like to me it's getting more narrow there and other places. So it's a concern to me about accidents.
Okay.
So thanks. And I have almost broken my ankles with all of the people driving off of the road on our property. So I can't imagine that there'd be many more cars going off the road just because they're not very patient driving on Panorama. So if this goes through, and I'm not sure that it's a great idea, I'm not in favor of speed bumps, but something to slow down the traffic there. And the traffic is really bad at rush hour times.
Thank you. Okay, sir.
I'm Ed Miller, and I live at 23 Hickory Lane, which seems to be this section over here. My big concern is the viability of the project. It screams to me with the idea of who the hell would want to live there.
Can you use the microphone?
Sure. What I said was, who the hell would want to live there? I don't want it to turn into something like we have in Brighton with the reserve, where this grandiose scheme has turned into litigation. Nobody's paying taxes, nobody's paying their HOA, nobody's mowing their grass, they're not caring for the road anymore because it's privately owned. And that's on pretty flat land in Brighton where you can get a vehicle in there. Now you've created a situation where if it doesn't turn out to be viable, you got people stuck in a ditch 100 or so feet down where they're not maintaining the road because it's not to their advantage or worth their time to do it anymore. So it just turns out to be a pig in a poke, and I wish everybody success. I'm not trying to take something away from somebody, but it just doesn't seem viable to me. You're trying to put, as you said, a tent at the bottom of a creek, and who's going to want to live there? I can't imagine. And that's pretty much all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to speak to this application? Sure, come on back up.
From an engineering standpoint, you mentioned something about a 35-mile-an-hour road, Panorama Trail. Nobody goes 35. Especially at that point there, I would say you have to base your numbers on 45 to 50. That's what people drive. And in rush hour, it may be even faster. So if you're considering all your calculations on 35, it's not going to work. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks. Okay, sir, come on up. I'm wondering if there's anybody that lives on Hickory Lane that's not here, and what are you guys going to tell them when?
I live on Farmbrook Drive.
All right.
124. My name is Marty Turberg, and I've walked this area for the last 20 years. I walk pretty much 5 out of 7 days. My concern is what the last gentleman said. I have seen some of the craziest things, and that section especially. They come around the curve, or they come up the thing, and everybody seems to think it's Indianapolis. And I saw one gentleman 2 weeks ago, he got frustrated, he went over the double line and drove up on the other side past the school bus. Oh yeah, and I've seen him go over the double line, I've seen it, and that's not just there, the whole Panorama. The increase in traffic on Panorama has boggled my mind. When I started, and I walk sometimes early, 7, 8 o'clock, and it used to be quiet. Now, between the people cutting through to avoid the light at Panorama and Browncroft and the people that drive there, I question when you're going to have a lot of, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of trucks you're talking about. I've seen blockages there where people just get frustrated. They're sitting behind a school bus and they don't want to do it anymore, and they just do crazy things. So the safety issue, to me, is one of, especially when you're building, you better do something to make sure that people aren't overly frustrated. I question whether you can dump a dump truck in 3 minutes. As in what I've seen when I've watched construction. I mean, drivers are drivers and they want to get back and get another load, but that seems pretty quick to me to dump. And I also agree, I don't know why anybody wants to live down in a soup bowl. I don't know.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Any other comments from the board? Okay, do you have any final?
I'm just not going to respond. I'm not going to respond to every comment. I'm just going to say a few general things. Back when we were here in May, I heard our neighbor to the north talk about slope creep. I know what slope creep is. That's why I said the slopes are at angle of repose, and when you're putting gutter drainage onto that and water into the pores of the soils, you're going to get sloughing, and that's why we're not disturbing those slopes. This is Arkport Dunkirk Colony soil, basically colony sandy loam. Other places in the town where this has been built on, Heather Drive, down in the flats, Burroughs Hills, lots of places in the Irondequoit Valley. It's basically a sand pit, so we know it's soft material. If you go down in there, there are piles of fallen trees. Those were cut down by the DPW when they went in to mess around with their culvert. And they also messed around with the stream for God knows what reason, because there was 7 feet of fall from the beginning of the site down to the culvert. The stream could have just stayed in its natural channel without disturbance. So there's a big mess down there that needs to be cleaned up. And our pads are not down in the hole. Our pads are up.
Our lowest finished floor is at 315. This pond is at 298.25. The basement is at 306, so there's 7 feet of fall from basement to there. There's also a pipe going under here. So these are sitting up on high ground, not down in the low ground. As far as Sam Lembo's comment, 35 is posted, not observed. I recommend, it's a town road, you do something like Brighton did on Elmwood Avenue, where they have a radar, or it's on French Road. There's a radar, you go more than 30 miles an hour on French Road, it flashes at you. Okay, because, all right. Anyway, the one thing, I did a traffic study a few years ago for the new Irondequoit Library. The county made a comment to me, and the traffic counts bore out that the traffic is down about 8% in the county because of our aging population. Now, maybe something special about Panorama Trail, getting from Browncroft down into the flats, don't know, but traffic is generally down. I appreciated the comment about the meadow down in the field, because we went back and we looked at mapping on the county site, and we saw the meadow. There are also little round pipe foundations. At one time, this was a Boy Scout camp. So you can go down and you might kick a pipe foundation here. I believe they came in along this stream from Clark Road. So they had a meadow, they had a parade ground, they had their lean-tos. Don't know where the latrine was. And also Helga from Hickory Lane said that her children played down there. So the people at the top of the hill, they have concerns because their slopes are moving down. I don't know how close their houses are. Back last spring, I shared with the board parts of the residential code that address how close a building can be to the top of a slope. And it also addresses how close buildings can be to the bottom of a slope. As I drive up, and I grew up in Penfield, class of 73, Penfield High. Okay, you sponsored one of our reunions out at the Penfield Country Club. It was a good time, we should do it again. So, yep, so I lost my train of thought. Anyway, there was a Boy Scout camp there. There was a parade ground. There was a meadow. Kids played in there. Once we go in with storm pipes and controlling the drainage, it's going to dry out, and it's going to be like Burroughs Hills, Heather Drive. But as the landscaper said, if you're driving over turf that is basically on Colony, sandy loam, make a great golf course, you know, it's going to be soft underfoot. It's not going to be Brighton clay. I live in Brighton. I know what Brighton clay is like. The vision is these homes are going to be 375, 4 1/4, that there are going to be 4 people that want to live on a private drive off Panorama Trail. There aren't too many of these being created these days. And they are, Jim Liebel actually did the renovations at the Frank Lloyd Wright House. He is a master craftsman, carpenter, so he will be the builder. These are not going to be slapdash cheap homes. They're going to be targeted at baby boomers with bad knees that want a first floor master and a couple bedrooms for when the kids come to visit. And the other thing with this pond, besides the engineering nuts and bolts, it creates more biodiversity down here where you have a stream, and now you've got this area, and you've got this undisturbed hickory grove,
and you can take the dog or you can go for a walk around the pond at night down in your own little enclave. So we'll widen the road, we'll put in guardrails, we'll put in lighting. Last year you said, would we be agreeable to doing individual site plans for each house? And I said I had no problem with that, because I hate it when I design something like this and then someone comes in and builds a house 25% bigger, deeper, wider, and it just doesn't fit. Okay? These are generous 46 by 46. I don't expect them to be that big. I live in a house in Brighton built in 1931, 24 deep, 26 wide. I could put my house in the middle of that cul-de-sac.
Any questions for us?
I would like to make one more remark. I never said that the children played down there. They went down there, they walked around.
Okay.
And it has never been, and that's 52 years, a Boy Scout camp down there. You would know that.
Okay. Thank you.
At this point, well, first I have one comment. Jim and Rich and Larry are all born and raised Penfield natives. I think that is important, what Larry was saying. This is going to be a quality development. They've been thinking about this for a long time, and they're ready to do it and ready to do it right. And I think it's going to come out really nice. If there are no questions, I would ask that you go through the seeker and grant the EPOD permit and preliminary and final site plan approval. I think we're ready, and we'd be willing to accept whatever conditions you've got.
Well, thank you for your presentation. We typically rarely approve projects, at least with this level of complication, the same night that we hear them. There's,
Okay.
So it'll be, I'll tell you right now, it'll be tabled tonight. There will be comments generated, and Larry will get a letter from the planning staff.
Okay.
With that, with additional comments.
All right. Well, thank you all very
All right.
much for your time. Is the public hearing closed now, I assume?
For this application, yes, it is, and thank you, and we can move on to the next item.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thanks. Okay, if you want to take, maybe we'll recess for about 2 minutes while the folks that aren't interested in sticking around for the rest of the exciting agenda that we have.
Long night. I tell you.
If the folks that are leaving could leave quickly so that we can continue on with the agenda, that would be much appreciated.
Larry, I wanted to shake your hand, Justin Kelly. Justin, I just wanted to thank you for your help on my project. Oh, okay. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for your comments.
Mager Engineering, P.O. Box 76, Victor, New York, 14564. On behalf of Janine Manus, requests under Chapter 250, Articles 11-11.2 and 12-12.2, preliminary final subdivision and site plan approval for a 2-lot subdivision to construct a new single-family residence with associated site improvements on a portion of the 103.36 acres located at 1850 5 Mile Line Road. The property is now or formerly owned by Shadow Lake Properties LLC and zoned R120. Application number 19P-0009, SBL number 124.01-2-45.1.
Thank you. Justin Kellogg, Mahar Engineering. With me tonight is the owner, Ms. Janine Manus. We're future owner. We're requesting subdivision and site plan approval for this lot.
The address is 1850 5 Mile Line Road, being part of Shadow Lake Golf Course, but the property is off Baird Road. We had turned in an application for a planning board meeting in the fall when we discovered there was a moratorium on the property preventing development. It's my understanding that that has now been lifted and we're clear to proceed with development. So we're here tonight. Nothing has changed on the project since our first application. We have received comments from the engineering department and I've addressed those as best I could for tonight. We've also received comments from the Monroe County Water Authority for the new water connection. I've submitted to Monroe County Pure Waters. They did not have any comments on the application. And with that, I'll open it up to questions and comments from the board and the public.
Yeah, Justin, a couple of questions regarding the, you don't need any zoning variances for this application, correct?
That's correct.
And what about this, besides the PRC comments, you've addressed most of those issues, or all of them, you said?
Yes, I have.
All right, what about the driveway issue with the neighbor? Oh, there you go.
That's been resolved, actually.
If you could just introduce yourself and your,
I'm Janine Manous, and I'm the other neighbor, soon to be. I've spoken to my neighbor, and I'm fine with that little overlapping of the driveway that she uses mine. It's not going to infringe on my use of the property. It would be something that later on, if she decided to redo the driveway, she would then straighten it so it's all on hers, and we just get something in writing to that effect, and I'm fine with that, so it's no problem for me.
Okay. Yeah, the town might require that
Yeah,
do something in
we'll have
writing also
something
for easement.
legal, a legal paper that would cover that. Pardon me?
oh,
Okay.
you'll be able to come up in a second. Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, good. I think I'm good. And
Yep. Questions?
Yours? Okay.
Questions? Okay, if you would mind coming up and just state your name, address, and all your credit card information for us.
My name is Mary Ann Begland, and I'm a resident, the only resident, at 1839 Baird Road, at the end of this long gravel driveway. What I really just wanted to say in regard to the driveway is, you know, we both agree that the property lines are where they're supposed to be. I mean, it's a straight line. It's only where the gravel is within the lines that has, thanks to mostly the snowplow guy, has gotten a little bit past. I think the answer to that in the wintertime is if I insist that we put up more markers so the snowplow people know exactly where they're supposed to plow. There has to be a bit of a curve in the driveway as it goes down farther past your property, because there's a very large cottonwood tree. And in order to keep the gravel part of the drive, you know, straight, it would have to go right through or around, you know.
Right.
It has to curve around. But that's way past the property that Janine is getting to build
Okay,
a house upon.
yeah, as long as you guys, you know, agree to that and you get something in writing to protect yourself. I mean, obviously, you know, sometime down the line.
Yeah, I mean, what I will try to do, the other thing that has influenced the gravel, see, I have 27 feet there. It's just that the gravel has gotten moved over. Part of it is also due to the fact that trees on the opposite side have gotten bigger.
Okay.
I've lived there for 37 years, and I'm sure each year I've probably added on, you know, a quarter of an inch or so, and not even realized that we were, you know, moving over there. So I'm going to talk to somebody about having all the lower branches on those big pine trees trimmed off, and then it will be much easier to correct that.
Okay.
The only other comment I had, which I hadn't even thought of earlier, I just hope there won't be, I guess I want to look at you when I say this. I just want to be sure that there isn't too much water coming over my driveway.
It mostly
Go ahead, Justin.
flows to the west this way.
great. I mean, currently, I don't have any problems, so I don't anticipate it. We're looking forward to being neighbors.
Okay, great.
So, and truthfully, I think most of my current
Come up
neighbors...
to the mic if you
I'm
could.
sorry.
We have people watching from all over
Oh,
upstate
okay.
New York, South Bristol, everywhere.
I'm not trying to speak for my other neighbors on Beard Road, but I do think that most of them will be happy also that there's going to be a nice home on that lot, and that, I know I've spent a lot of time over the past 37 years mowing out near the sidewalks. Well, sidewalks haven't been there that long, but you get the idea. And it will just be very nice that there's a property there that will be taken care of.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect, thank you.
Oh, it's true.
Would anyone else in the audience like to comment on this application? Okay, no other comments from the board? Thank you for your presentation. Yep. It was.
So you said for the last applicant that you typically don't give approvals first night, so this would be...
It depends on the level of complexity. So we will reconvene at the back of the room once the public hearing is done and discuss
Should I?
all of the applications. You're welcome to stay.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Zach, would you like to read the next application?
Surely. Application number 3, Paul Haybeck, 9 Sweets Views Drive, Fairport, New York, 14450, requests under Chapter 250, Articles 11-11.2, for preliminary final subdivision approval for a 2-lot subdivision with associated site improvements. Actually, none at this time. Correction to that, no site improvements. On a 10-acre property located at 1740 Salt Road. The property is now or formerly owned by Paul and Diane Haybeck and zoned RA2. Application number 19P-0010, SBL number 111.03-1-33.1. All yours, Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Haybeck. I currently own 1740 Salt Road. I bought it just recently. I've lived in that area for, 35 years or so. It's my third house, probably within hundreds of yards, not thousands of yards. I'm in Sweets View Drive now, and we need to downsize our house. So this was part of a subdivision. This was 2 lots originally in the subdivision. We're just we bought the 10 acres. We're selling the house, and the house to Scott Rothfuss, Terry Rothfuss's son, and we're just going to build a house on the other 5 acres. And originally, that's what it was divided into that subdivision. Anyways, they're all 5-acre lots right along there. So we just want to re-subdivide it and build a house there. So
Okay. Bob, you got any questions?
It's pretty straightforward. The south lot, is there a house currently on there?
There's a house at 1740, and then there's the other 5-acre lot that they
Make sure you're
actually
talking to the mic.
joined together and made
Bob,
one lot.
Bob, your mic. You need to speak in your mic. The
Okay.
mission control is yelling at me right now.
It originally was a separate lot. There is a house on 5 acres. It was originally 2 5-acre lots. The people, the Fours who owned it prior, I believe, bought the other lot and then combined them together to make one lot. We're just re-subdividing it into two 5-acre lots. And all the lots right along there are 5-acre lots.
Okay. So my only concern was the viability of both lots from a septic system point of view.
Well, that's all to be engineered. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, the town has to approve it. We'll have engineered plans that'll be approved by New York State.
And being right next to each other, it's probably not an issue.
I think with 5 acres, we'll make it work.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
No.
Anyone in the audience like to comment on this? Sure, sir, come on up.
Hi, my name is Dave Young. My wife and I live at 1722 Salt Road, which is adjacent to this property on the north side of 1740. I've lived in the 1800s farmhouse since 1976. This house was originally the DeRoos homestead and farm, which was sold and divided into 5-acre parcels by Marv Rosen in the early 70s. The property at 1740 was originally, like you said, 2 5-acre pieces, which were originally approved as 5-acre lots in that subdivision. So they were combined, and now they wish to be split back apart. I fully support this request since it reverts back to the original subdivision plan. The only recommendation I would like to see included is the one that was in the original 5-acre plan, and that is that there cannot be further subdivision of the 5-acre lots.
Okay.
So that will maintain the original intent for this area on the east side of Salt Road.
I can absolutely say there will not.
Great.
There will not.
Great.
Yeah. No, we've been looking for a 5 or 6 acre lot or 5+ acre lot for 6 years now, 5, 6 years now, and we finally found one.
Okay.
No way.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else care to comment on this application? Going once. Okay, no other comments from the board? Paul, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Mr. Nursinger, let's read
Last
item
and
number
final.
4.
Watch your step, everyone's getting that. Put a comb down or something. Application number 4, T.Y. Lynn International, 255 East Avenue, Rochester, New York, 14604, on behalf of McDonald's USA LLC, request under Chapter 250, Articles 12-12.2, for final site plan approval for a building addition with associated site improvements on a 0.9-acre property located at 2191 Penfield Road. The property is now formally owned by Carmelo Espinoza and zoned GB. Application number 19P-0011, SPL number 140.01-2-1.1.
New plans.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Randy Bebout with T.Y. Lynn International, here on behalf of McDonald's USA LLC and the local owner-operator, Mary Ellen Guan, who is with me tonight. So the scope of this project is adding side-by-side drive-through. McDonald's is doing this in a lot of locations. This is the first one in Penfield. And part of adding the side-by-side drive-through, which increases the efficiency of the drive-through operation, excuse me, just allows the whole site to really work better, reduces the stacking in the drive-through, and just helps the whole process. And part of the side-by-side drive-through, we're adding a small building addition. The purpose of that small building addition is to get the correct spacing between the windows. So this small addition in the back, 106 square feet, allows us to get just a little over 40 square feet between the two windows, so you can have a car at the where you pick up the food, you have a car in between, and then you have a car at the what they refer to as the cash booth where you're paying. So it just another means of making the process efficient. And then from the cash window back to the order point, that's generally done in 20-foot increments, so that there's really no wasted space. This happens to be 95 feet, so they allow 5 feet plus or minus in the layout. So it's usually either 60, 80, or 100. On rare occasions, they'll go a little bit longer if the site allows, but we're at 95 feet, so it gives adequate time, so when somebody places their order, go up to the cash window, and by the time they get to the window to pick up their food, generally speaking, it's ready. Not always, but most of the time, it's a pretty efficient operation. We did, as part of adding the side-by-side, we did lose parking. We were granted a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals on March 21st for the reduction in parking. The other thing that we looked at to determine that we didn't need a variance was the lot coverage. With this modification, we ended up maintaining the exact same lot coverage. It took a little bit of a finagling to do it, but we were able to accomplish it without really impacting the site at all. We just took away a little sidewalk. We actually moved this curb down a little bit, which honestly helped a little bit. There's a little more of a stack there versus that last car parked out, so there's reduces the conflict of a car being blocked. The other thing that we did a couple things that we did as part of this is the ADA spaces are currently on the east end of the building on the south side. Not a great location because when you do get the stacking and then it's tough to get in and out of those. So what we did is we moved those all the way to the west, really closer to the front, one of the main entrances, and ideally reducing the amount of blockage, reducing the frequency of how often they potentially could be blocked. I don't have it shown on here, but I thought it was on a plan, maybe it was on the plan to the zoning board. From this point to this point, we can get 19 vehicles stacked. As part of the zoning board application, we did a parking study. Mary Ellen actually performed the parking study. And what we did is we looked at the peak hour on Friday in the morning, lunchtime, and evening, and then we looked at the peak hour on Saturday from 11 to 1. The maximum stacking that we had at that point was 17 cars. And then we also looked at the parking. Every 15 minutes we counted the parking spaces. The highest number we had of cars parked was approximately 10 spaces below the amount of parking that we're providing. So that was, it's a snapshot in time, but it it supported our argument for the granting of the variance, and sort of supported the fact that we shouldn't have any issues on the site. So we had 17 cars with the old layout, and we, generally speaking, what happens with the side-by-side is just the whole operation becomes more efficient. Not just what's happening on the outside, but what's happening on the inside. And again, the window spacing makes it more efficient. So that's sort of, the other thing we did that I was going to talk about was the dumpster enclosure. So currently the dumpster enclosure, to service it, the gates face north, so they come in and they service that. What we did is we rotated the dumpster enclosure so that the gates face to the east, because we're not changing the travel path per se of the dumpster, of the refuge trucks, because they currently come in this back drive and they come in and they service this. So now what we did is we oriented this so that they come in here, they'll service it, they back up, and then they're going to go out onto 441. I think currently they may be exiting this way, but Mary Ellen is working with the refuge company, and she's going to change that circulation to eliminate this sort of going against traffic, because this is a one-way circulation. Delivery trucks, they come in the back. They come in and they come parking along the essentially parallel to the side of the building, and then they exit out onto 250. We're not changing that. There's really not an option to change that. And that delivery is, generally speaking, done off hours, I think almost all the time. 4 a.m. So it's really a non-issue as far as the delivery truck going the wrong way and conflicting with any traffic because it's off hours. So that, in a nutshell, is the project. We did receive the comments from the PRC. I know the board hasn't had an opportunity to review that. Zach probably hasn't had an opportunity to review that because we just got it to him today. But I would say of all the comments, we essentially addressed the comments, just some examples. You know, we added a yield sign, we added a pedestrian crossing sign, we increased the width of the sidewalk on the south side of the building to 7 feet. So we didn't take any exception with any of the comments. We have the DOT permit. We actually had it and we had to get an extension, so we have that. So I'm just going to kind of highlight on a couple of the comments. First one being landscaping. So typically when we do these projects, we don't, like the one in Baytown, not necessarily changing the landscaping, and we're really not changing the landscaping here per se. We're not changing the landscape areas, I'll say, other than we did shrink up the front. We did reduce this front green space because we're moving the pull-forward vehicles to the front of the building versus over here. So the landscape areas are staying generally the same, but I would note that Mary Ellen met with a couple landscape outfits today, and she is looking at enhancing and changing some of the landscaping. So what we talked about is when she figures out what it is she wants to do, we'll certainly share that with town staff, and town staff can review that and, make any comments, and we'll work together on that. There was some comments about the drainage and how the drainage works on this site. So there's multiple drainage structures on site. I want to say there's 5. Those structures are dry wells. They're dry wells that are, according to the record maps, connected with a sort of an overflow pipe. And it seems a little unusual because they're large, oversized, large connecting pipes where typically you might see a 8-inch or a 12-inch. These are shown as 18 up to even 48-inch diameter, which seems a little bizarre. There was some investigation done in this structure right here. So there's actually 2 structures there currently. Originally there was 1 structure. At some point another one was added. And Mary Ellen doesn't really have the history with that. We don't really know the history of that, but there has been some settlement issues. So what we're proposing to do while we're doing all this work is we're going to pull both of those structures out, figure out, see if there's anything obvious going on, but if not, we're going to obviously backfill it, compact it. We're going to put a new drywall structure in that matches the one that we're pulling out and connect it into the pipes, and we'll go from there. There was also a question about what maintenance has been done to these. And again, there's not a lot of history on this with Mary Ellen, but I would note that last year she had, I think it was Roto-Rooter come out, and there was one of the structures that looked like maybe it was holding some water. They ended up doing some maintenance, televising it and cleaning it, and corrected the problem. But there is no known flooding problems with the structures. She's never had water ponding in the parking lot. And we sort of noted in our response that, moving forward, we will share those inspection reports and the maintenance stuff that is done with the town on a more regular basis. And then I guess the only other thing, there was a question about a light pole. So currently with the reorientation of the dumpster, we have to move a light pole, and we're relocating that about 20 feet to the west. So there's just a question of what impact that may have. So we're trying to look into that, trying to gather some information on the existing lights. I mean, our thought is it really doesn't have much of an impact. This rear town road really has no lights on it per se that are what appear to be town lights, but there is one light pole that's appears to be part of the bank that is shining on that, but there's really no other lights in here. So we are going to take a further look at that and try to figure out what that impact would be. But generally speaking, we didn't take any exception with the comments, and I think we've adequately addressed all the comments. And with that, I can answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that you've been holding off on doing the facade improvements.
Yes.
Anticipating this.
Yep.
Okay. To speak to your earlier comments about the peak times, is traffic there pretty consistent throughout the year, or are there busier times than others during the year? And when your traffic study was done, was that during one of the busy times or one of the slower times?
Well,
if there's a difference in times?
So, we did the standard peak hours, 7 to 9, 11 to noon, and 4 to 6 on Friday, which generally speaking, when you're doing traffic studies, those are the days Friday and Saturday are the days you're picking. I don't know if you have any thoughts on, certainly there's times of the year, holidays, maybe it's a little bit busier. We did this on the weekend of March, like the second week in March, I want to say it was first or second, maybe it was the first week in March, first weekend in March, but.
Okay, maybe.
So peak days, Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
This was.
Do you mind introducing yourself?
I'm sorry,
and your-
Mary Ellen Brothers go on 2191 Penfield Road, Penfield. So we did the traffic study on Friday and Saturday, busiest days. This was the week before St. Patty's Day, so Shamrock Shakes were out. These were peak days. To answer your question, throughout the year, first quarter is a little slower, but as you know, the traffic patterns in town are the same no matter what month it is. It really depends on what the weather forecaster says. If they say it's going to snow, no one stops because they're going to get stuck on 590 somewhere. So we're pretty consistent with our traffic, though, to answer that question.
Okay, so it's pretty, you don't see a market increase at any particular, it's 50% busier in July than it is in March?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Randy, you mentioned, so I'm assuming that, currently, people may enter the site from the southeast drive by the bank and then just kind of try to get in line at the drive-through?
Yeah, so what we.
So you're hoping to convince them to now circulate around the building and stack up on the south side, right?
Yeah, so I can speak to that.
And it probably stacks somewhat on busier times on the south side anyway.
Yes. So what we've done a couple things here. We've added, I think it's a 2-foot wide island that we're gonna fill with concrete, and we're gonna have orange flexible bollards, little 3-inch diameter flexible bollards. And then at the south end of this, we have a sign, a one-way sign, so that when cars coming in, they see that. Obviously, we have the pavement striping. We know, obviously, in the wintertime, it's not as effective. Mary Ellen this is a very challenging issue for her with the cars. Cutting through is an issue with the cars doing what you're suggesting. I'm going to quote her, and she said she's going to personally hand out tickets, and she's going to monitor this and try to, as much as practical, really, I don't want to say eliminate that, but minimize that going on. So we're trying to provide as much signage, we're kind of limited on, so we do have a one-way sign here, and on the north side of the enclosure, we're going to put a do not enter. I know signage is only so effective because people are going to do what they want, but
right.
The hope is with those things and maybe some monitoring and just sort of educating people that there's a reason for this, and it's a safety reason. It's a not get people frustrated reason. So we're going to try to accomplish that.
Okay, and then when you mentioned the 19 cars, you seem to point to the northwest part of the lot, and did you mean the south part?
Well, I'm saying, if you start here, and we do.
So that's where people are leaving though, right? They get their food and then they
yeah, so they're leaving here, but I'm saying if you, from this
there
point,
back to the.
From here to here, and if you wind it all the way back, you can get 19 cars on the site.
Got it.
Before it would have an impact on the entrance.
Okay, that was what I needed the clarification on. Okay, the only other comment I have is on the landscaping, and I've always, you do a great job on trimming those trees. They look great on the corner there, so.
Good, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. Brady, what's the hours of operation there?
5 a.m. to midnight currently.
5 a.m. to midnight.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the tractor trailers load up at 4 a.m., correct?
They unload at 4 a.m., they get on the lot. They drop pallets. So it's unassisted delivery. We have a key with a lockbox or a lockbox with a key in it. They come in, they drop, and they're off the lot.
The pallets. So now, so how many parking spots do we lose on that side of the building once they drop the pallets?
Actually, this just in, Randy. So I met with the delivery company. They're going to use a smaller truck, and they're going to cart over to the delivery door.
Okay. But how many spots are on that side of the building?
Well, we have nine
Nine.
against the building, and we have 15 on the opposite side of the driveway. So they would, I mean, I'm assuming at 4 in the morning, there's nobody on the lot. So they're coming here and then dropping their pallets, and, you know, before the first car hits the site, they're gone and the stuff is inside and taken care of.
How many employees do they have?
When they deliver, there's no one in the building.
Okay, I mean, but 5 AM, so how many employees will be taking up parking spots? I'm getting that.
4.
4.
Mm-hmm.
So out of those ones you just got approved for those, say, for employees, correct?
And currently they all park on this side of the building. So they're on the 441 side.
Okay. So now we approved this, I don't know how long ago, a year?
Yeah, it's been a year because we just actually renewed our building permit. It was March 28th of 2018.
Okay.
Our permit, was issued. So we just last week we got the renewal for the permit. They're actually doing 2 different permits. So we have a remodel permit for the work that was previously approved by the board and by the building department, and then they're issuing a separate building permit for the addition that's occurring.
Okay. And now if we approve that, you anticipate starting that, or is it gonna?
They would like to start on the 22nd. I caution them that I've got to get the planning department Mylars and sign-offs, and so we've got some work to do to make that happen. Now, they have a permit, so they can technically go and start this project. They obviously just can't do anything with the addition at that point, or anything with the drive-through until we get that taken care of. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work out. We're going to make every effort to make that happen. And I don't know if they'll choose to start that on the 22nd if they don't have that. But there's enough they can do, other things they can do to.
Because they're starting, I mean, the approval was the whole facade around the whole building.
That's correct. The original permit was for the facade and the ADA improvements, and we've, now with this plan, we've modified some of the ADA improvements, but it's generally the same, and we still have the same connecting walk. We didn't really change any of the sidewalks, other than we've increased the width of that along the building. So, yeah, they could technically start and do some things without getting into the scope of work that we're asking for approval on.
Okay. And the landscaping is gonna stay the same all around the building? No?
The landscape areas are really unchanged. It's a question of what she wants to enhance it, maybe change out some plants, maybe move some things around, but, we'll have to work with town staff on that. I don't know, that, we need to figure out how that might not hold up what we would like to do, so we'll talk about that offline.
Okay. You're not opposed to meeting with the landscape architect, work with you guys on?
No, I mean, she's met with a couple landscape companies to talk about what she might want to do, and, yeah, what we offered was, once she figures out what she wants to do, we'll put that on a plan, and we'll get that to Zach, and, it could be reviewed by the town.
The plan now is to refresh. There's no point in putting a new facade on a new dining room.
Exactly.
And not refresh the exterior. So my plan is to refresh, everything won't be torn out, but it'll be a real refresh.
Right, I think that's a good idea. And what about the refuse company? So you're gonna be meeting with them about relocating that?
Mary Ellen has already met with them, and they're on board with how we're changing the enclosure orientation and how they're going to enter. I mean, it's not changing how they enter the site, it is changing how they exit the site, but they're on board with that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Bill or Bob? No. Okay.
right.
Anyone in the audience like to comment on this application? Come on.
Come on.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and we will call this hearing closed. Have a great night, everyone. Through 2341.
You remember that, okay?
Okay.
Deal. All right, so jumping back into tabled applications, as we take some time to soak in
Yeah.
that public hearing.
Brian, we're back.
I thought we might be. TV was on, here we go. So, item 4 of our, I don't know if there's anything on our agenda, but our next table applications for this continued conversation of the sketch plan application for the Lupo Rubino subdivision that the board's been looking at. And I'll ask Doug to bring up the conventional plan. Quick update for the board on, oh, there it goes. So, just conventional, please. All right. So I just recently got an update from the applicant. This plan came to you before the drop on Friday. That's not on. With modifications in 2 main areas that the board discussed at the last meeting. This was an odd lot configuration here, with a house that was situated between a drainage ditch near wetlands and the stream buffer area, and the board had concerns there. That has been removed, and in place of it is a consolidated stormwater management facility. Previously, there were 4 of them scattered on the plan, and they have been consolidated, so the applicant has provided that on this conventional plan. Moving on, there were concerns for lot 57 and lot 54. 54 had a very, very shallow usable backyard area. That's been expanded to have a minimum depth of 50 feet. Wetland mitigation areas have been increased at the lots adjacent to offset that increase. And a house location has been shown for lot 57, situated with 150 feet, 50 feet of lot width, and again meeting providing a usable backyard area. There are wetlands still present on that property. Again, conventional plan. So any questions or concerns on that?
Nope, keep going.
All right, so the update that I have is looking at lot 27 here. On this version of the plan and the previous one, as you can see, it's quite narrow. In speaking with the applicant today, I have a hand sketch here in front of me. I'll do my best to draw it on here for you. Doug, can you zoom out a little bit, please, so I can see that corner? Thank you. By adjusting this line here, these lots are in excess of size for the minimum square footage. By adjusting this line here, bringing it over, it allows this line to move over these property lines and increasing the width for this property for it to meet code.
Okay.
So they had some wiggle room there, and it will be adjusted as part of the future plan set. And that was one of our concerns that we caught when the plan came in, and they adjusted it per our concern. The next one is to the left side, the other corner. Doug, if you could, there we
South
go.
end.
Yep, lots 8, 9, and 10. We had concerns here for the location of these homes. As I said earlier, we measure 150 feet of lot width at the front of the home to be compliant with the code. And as you see here, these homes clearly don't have the 150, but they would ask that a future plan would show the home further back to accommodate that 150 feet with the yards. Other than that, don't have any other major updates for you. Mike, was there anything else that we discussed?
What's the width in lot 8?
Lot 8 is shown at
138.
138.
Okay, so 8, 9, and 10 are, to get 150 feet in 9 and 10, you gotta go pretty
You gotta
far
go far back. So that's a concern there. Perhaps I'll open it to you guys to discuss that.
To me, like, 3 lots go to 2.
That's a simple solution.
Yeah.
Make lots.
So
9 and 10.
move 8 over and combine 9 and 10? Or just leave 9 and 10 as one and maybe 8 of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could like move all three, or both those lot lines to create two.
Take the one out.
Two better
and
lots.
Move the other one down.
Yeah, it
I
sounds
mean, I
like,
admire the ingenuity, for sure, but
so widen 8, and then merge 9 and 10, right?
yeah.
Right.
Okay. And you said on this northeast corner that you covered,
Back to the other one originally,
no, you're going
Lot
west.
57 was it?
the,
18, right?
yeah, the corner down at the bottom there, right corner.
So 27 can become
It can shift.
workable. What about
Correct.
26 as a, well, it's kind of a
It's-
wonky flag lot right there. You're gonna have driveway come off and do a hard 90?
Oh, I see there, yeah, all right.
Is that really a workable thing?
I mean, you could also see it as
I mean,
a shared drive.
we probably
Or merge 26,
shared drive
27.
on for 27?
No, you could, I mean, potentially you could see it between, if these two were to share a driveway or something. I mean, we've seen weirder things.
We have, but we're,
And you have,
I mean, the reason that we've shared
that's 20
lot,
feet, I think.
the reason why we've done shared driveways is to minimize curb cuts
True.
on a state road or a busy road.
Mhm.
Not because we wanna, let's see how much we can pack into the sardine can. Not that it's a sardine can, but I'm just floating out there that
Well, that's what
that
this
as a flag
conversation's
lot
for.
is, to me, if this is coming in as the plan,
Would we approve it like that?
yeah,
Probably not.
probably not.
Why can't they combine 25, 26, and 27 into 2 lots? And that solves without affecting the other 2 lots that are to the right. And then they can eliminate that. I think the wonky flag lot is a good description. Because that, yeah, I don't ever remember seeing anything like that.
Yeah, we'll give everybody that.
So essentially, we're trying to come up with our sketch plan letter right now, so we can get that sent out. And, so are we looking at these, suggested that these get combined and suggested that 8, 9, and 10? So 3 to 2 on each one?
I mean,
Yeah.
typically, we don't go in and start redesigning this, so we just tell them what we don't want.
Right, but we're looking at developing a density calculation
Right.
so that when they go and design the 278 plan,
Right.
they know how many lots they're working with.
Right, yeah.
So,
And
per,
even though you could maybe fit them in, this is only for a conventional plan, but you wonder if it would actually, if you could sell it this way.
right,
So even, I think even 18 and 19 is a little, maybe not as bad as some of them, but that's still,
It's the same
you know,
way, right? Yeah.
they got a taper on the lot lines so they can get the 150, but it's 138 at the end, at the base.
Wider in front.
So combine 18 and 19 and move the other 2 lines in a little more.
I'm sorry, Bob, what, you're looking at 18, 19, I missed where the other 2 lines you're referencing?
Take 18 and 19, take that middle line out, and then for 17 and 20, maybe make those lots a little bit bigger.
20 is a
20 is
compliant
ample.
lot.
Okay,
18 is as well, it's 175 feet at the back. 18 tapers back to 138, but here at the measuring point, you have 150. think you have about 20 feet. 20 feet, Matt, is that 20 feet there on that flag? Thank you. So that's a 20-foot width there coming into that property.
And the driveway on 19 would be 135 plus whatever it would take to get back to,
The
this-
150-foot
yeah,
wide.
to this point, to this
Yeah.
So
point.
that's
here.
157 right there. The other one's 138, so 18 is kind of narrow.
Well, again, it does
And
take,
17 is just at the acre, right?
say that again, AJ, I'm sorry.
Well, 44,000 square feet.
Oh, well, yeah, the size of it. This one does taper back. It's actually wider up here than
Yeah.
the back.
How much?
Without a dimension on there, I didn't measure it myself. but
12
I
feet.
believe it's close to 150.
Yeah, well,
just to, yeah.
to just get it. So,
I mean, so far I hear the two areas definitely.
Yeah.
So include in the sketch letter for them to review that and revise
Yep.
that.
Any other
Areas?
Yeah.
Locations? No, they addressed the ones from the last meeting and these were the only two that needed to still be addressed. And Doug, probably better with actual scale. It's not measuring in feet.
No, it is. It's
Or, oh, it's in-
that's 154
oh.
feet. We just scale it.
Did 1.5, I didn't see that. So yeah, that one does have the width there as it's being measured like the rest are.
It's tight.
Okay.
Alright, that's good.
It's
If you bring it up to that corner,
An acre is what?
43,560.
43,560. Okay.
but who's counting?
Oh, we need to.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
Are there any other concerns from the board at this time? So it'd be a standard sketch letter.
Standard sketch, other than, I'm uncomfortable, given the depth to bedrock. You know, we need to have in this letter,
Geo.
yeah, they might be building on slabs, no basements. I mean, those are things that, you know, I get the fact that none of that is completely determined, but
Correct.
I really don't want to approve lots that people are going to have a nightmare living in down the road.
So you'd want them identified, what would have to be slabs if necessary versus basements. And that would have to be reflected on the plan based on depth to rock and amount of fill and how
Yeah.
that would be accomplished on a future plan.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's a big concern.
Yep. And then how all that impacts drainage.
Correct.
Going forward.
Yep. Do you guys have anything else on this? Comfortable with putting a letter out with that info?
Well, this is just for the density
For the
calculation.
density
And
calculations?
then
Yeah.
bedrock is for the final
Right.
build.
You just wanted to have that noted
Yeah,
in the
but
sketch
that,
letter.
I think that should be stated by us in the sketch letter that
Yeah.
that's a major concern of ours. And the drainage and all that. Okay? Somebody want to move to?
We'll send a sketch letter with those comments.
Send a sketch letter.
No second?
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Do you need this?
Okay. Moving on. Let's do 2341.
Nope, you have one more.
Yeah.
Panorama office park.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, we got a guy in the audience for this and everything.
Sorry, ladies.
No.
My bad.
Was it office park or
Office park.
generator?
Office park, not generator.
Okay.
All right, this one's quick. Panorama Office Park. We're still in our 30-day window for the responses to lead agency for seeker as a type 1 action. We have received a revised plan that shows a few things. Is that
That's just the plot.
That's just plat. I can't tell if the sidewalk is on there.
Oh, yes, they are.
Yeah, so on this plan, quickly, we are just showing the sidewalk that's been included.
South side of the road, south and east, okay?
Yep. One side
Good.
internal as discussed by the board at the last meeting. And then that's there. The setbacks, hang on, the setbacks have been updated per our conversation last time about the nuances of limited industrial. So that's been addressed here. And the last thing I wanted to bring up to the board to ask for your opinion of this was on the grading plan, Doug, if you don't mind. The overall, yeah, let's use that one. Perfect. And let's zoom into that corner like we did at PRC the other day. Right around here, we have some existing trees,
Yeah, some big-
significant caliber.
Yeah.
And they're showing some proposed grading there. One thing that we talked about at PRC was if that area could not be disturbed during this initial overall road construction, infrastructure construction. Oh, that's a weird way to say that. And
Yeah,
wanted to
maybe
know
we
the
could
board's
save those
thoughts.
trees.
Save those trees through this process until they know what type of site plan's actually going to be planned for
Yeah,
this.
hopefully they can be saved forever.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
And I
I'm
believe,
for that.
And I believe
Yeah,
the
I like
conservation
trees.
board, the conservation board's report is going to echo that when we receive that for your next meeting. So you'll have that to look at the April work session. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that, and we can communicate that back to the applicant.
Anybody hate the trees? Okay, good.
Okay, so with that, and I hear no questions, just need a motion
I'll
to
move
table.
to table, and
second.
with those suggestions.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
Waited this long for that.
All right, don't let me lose track of two miscellaneous items that we have to talk about
Did we
too.
do number 3?
Yes. Crown Point?
Yeah, we did, we approved it, it's done. We got it in. You wanna do the section of the Class C chassis and just get her done?
Sure, let's do it. We got two quick action items then, but not, sure. Okay, Class C
Oh.
chassis, you do that. That's a conversation piece. We don't need a map for it.
Yeah.
The 1600 Penfield Road, we have come up on a 1-year time frame for that project, office buildings.
Approve an extension, somebody move.
I'll move to the extension.
wow.
How long are they asking for?
1 year.
1 year? 1 year.
Here we go. I can't write this fast, guys.
Oh, second by,
Yeah.
Terry.
Are you just handing
Fine.
seconds out?
No, it's Tidings that said it first. Unless you already wrote down
Yes.
Canower. Okay, it's Canower, sorry, Terry.
Okay.
Hetzke,
Aye.
I feel like I'm at
Bastian,
an auction.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
Since we're in action, since we're in action items, I'm keeping you right here. Before we go into the table, the public hearing stuff, calm yourself down. Penfield Square. I'm imagining this will be our final conversation about the backup generator they are proposing for the site. They provide a cross-section of the location where it's being proposed. Just wanted to clarify that this generator is only intended for servicing the elevator and the emergency light services and whatever other emergency utilities are necessary in the building.
So it's
How
not,
big is it?
yeah, it
It
was
is-
my,
It was
it's
40
gonna be
40
small.
feet down
It is
there?
going to be small. Did you grab those pictures?
Like the size of a
Small.
desk or the size of a semi?
Not the size of a semi.
It's-
There we go. I asked for an example of what it looks like in the field.
So what is that, 6 feet
Let's
wide?
not look at that monster
Two of
one
these,
there.
two of these tables.
Yeah, it'd be this one.
Yes.
3 feet, 3.5 feet by 8 feet by just under 5 feet tall.
So
335.
8 feet is this table?
8 feet.
Yeah. 3 foot wide.
3 foot wide,
5 feet tall?
5 feet
Okay,
So it's
got it.
a typical house generator, whole house is probably 8 to
8
12
to
coming
12.
off.
Yeah,
So this is 40?
yeah.
So it's big, but not that.
Well, if it's doing the elevator.
Yeah, the elevator's,
It's gonna have the start. doors. Yeah.
yeah, the elevator on this, well, no, I'm not.
All right, I was imagining this
Large.
behemoth,
Whole house, whole
you know, like
facility.
a tractor trailer size thing before.
If they were to do the whole building, they said it would be big monster generator, but it's just for backup stuff, for
Yeah.
emergency light.
Yeah,
and
for
I believe
life
they're gonna-
safety and the
Life safety,
elevator.
and I believe they're gonna run the elevator off of it, but that's what it is, basically.
Okay.
And they provide the landscaping buffering around it accordingly. This is a tough shot to show, but it does wrap 3 sides of it. Plus there is the field of trees that will be installed with this project that buffers it further from 250 and the northern properties. It has the bollards there to protect it from vehicles because it is adjacent to parking at the northeast of the corner of the site. But we did clarify the size of it, and it has a level 2 sound enclosure on it.
Exercised once a week,
I believe so, yes.
Probably. That's usually what they do.
and decibel level at 50 feet. Do we have that?
Do you happen to know that, Mike?
I can look at it.
We had specs at the last
It's
meeting.
right there. Or no, that's
At
weather
23
enclosure.
that's at 23
sound
feet.
enclosure,
Oh,
Yeah.
23 feet.
and that's,
I believe it's around 60 decibels with the sound enclosure. I can verify that. That's probably need to.
Good.
Okay.
not with the traffic.
All right.
No.
So,
Traffic will draw it out.
This is a site plan modification, so we do need an approval just
Okay.
to bless it along with the landscaping.
Second?
Hetzke.
Aye.
Bastian.
Aye.
Canower.
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Okay.
Roped you back in on that one.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. 2341, I remember the number.
2341.
Number 2 was the single-family home subdivision of property from what is known as Shadow Lake Country Club. This fronts on Baird Road, actually. Just to clarify what was spoken about during the public hearing, the moratorium is still in effect on Shadow Lake for preventing any future development. However, this piece of land, I'm going to call it a finger of land that extends to Bear Road along with another one further south, were both excluded from the moratorium. Therefore, they have proceeded with site plan approval request for this project. And Doug's just showing those areas quickly on the map. So the northern one is where we're looking at right here. If we zoom in, actually, I can just help kind of define what was discussed. We can see that gravel drive that's coming back to service the neighbor's home there. And again, some trees that are there now that obviously that kind of dictate the course of the driveway. But Terry, to your point, something in writing will be secured between the neighbors to bless having that overlap on the site plan. If we could go back to the site plan now. Oh, we closed it. Oh, it's there. Couldn't tell it was open. Can we just zoom in? Well, anyways, can we zoom in a little bit so it's not black? All right. So here's the property line here, going as steady as I can. And you can see the overlap of the driveway there. Again, a written agreement can be done there. Revised plans were submitted recently in response to the PRC comments to address drainage concerns from the engineering department. We're in the process of reviewing those, but again, most of our comments at this point are technical in nature. Other than that,
So I can make the motion based on the approval of what you guys have.
subject to the plans are to the satisfaction of the town engineer, so on and so forth, and we'll obtaining the copy of the written agreement for this overlap of the driveway on the property.
Okay.
Just to keep on the project record. So we have provided an EAF for this.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve that.
Okay.
EAF.
A second.
Hetzke.
Aye.
Bastian.
Aye.
Canower.
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye. I'll make the motion to approve the
I'll second.
application.
I'll second.
Hetzke.
Aye.
Bastian.
Aye.
Canower.
Aye.
Tidings.
Oh, aye.
Okay. Number 3. Salt Road, 2-lot sub, a 10-acre property going back to its original configuration of 2 equal 5-acre properties. As I said, the northern lot there, we'll just scroll over. Yeah, let's go over there. Why not? The northern side of the site has a house situated on it that goes back to its 5-acre property, and the owner plans to develop the southern piece of it, the residual 5 acres, for his own house relatively soon here. He was recently approved a a grade and fill permit by the town board to start some preliminary grading work to level out the front half of it. It tends to dip down a little bit, so he's going to be starting some site work there. A site plan, obviously, we would mention that any future home would require site plan approval in the resolution, and that would be an administrative process because the lot would have been created by then, and it would not be before this board as a site plan. We'd do it like we would any other one-lot, single-family home. No comments on this from staff, other than make sure you get your site plan approvals when the time's right. Questions from the board?
None. Motion to approve the EAF.
I'll second.
Okay, so that was Canower and Bastian.
Yes.
Hetzke.
Aye.
Bastian.
Aye.
Canower.
Aye.
Tidings.
And motion to approve the approval resolution.
Okay.
I'll second.
Hetzke.
Aye.
Bastian.
Aye.
Canower.
Aye.
Tidings.
Okay.
Number 4,
Mickey D's.
back at McDonald's. Let's go with the site plan. That's a demo plan. There we go. Applicant did a very good job recapping what they've done so far. Obviously, this board saw it a year ago for the facade updates. Those have maintained, the designs have been maintained with obviously just adjusting the drive-through down, but the materials are consistent. Really, you're looking at the double lane drive-through order area and the associated site improvements that come with it, the dumpster being spun around, pavement markings to direct traffic, AJ, to your point, into that one-way loop that they're creating here. The parking that's being eliminated is the 10 spots along this side of the property, something that the zoning board reviewed last month and granted the area variance for less parking. Again, that's 10 spaces that would be removed. They're going from 51 to 41 on the site. The parking counts that they provided certainly supported that. A lot more, it's what we notice with everything, a lot more drive-through traffic than people walking into the building.
Sure.
And again, the ADA improvements are consistent with earlier. Staff is supportive of all that. And again, as Randy had pointed out in his presentation, I did skim the responses, saw them briefly. So it seemed like everything was in accordance with what the PRC memo recommended. And I think I would only bring up that one item with the landscape plan, that if you'd like as a board, if you just want to defer that to your landscape consultant when that comes in, or if you'd like to see it in a work session, or let them
I'm
do
fine
what they need to do.
with, you know, yeah, Bruce taking a look or
Staff.
having them do what they want to do. I don't know if you're good with that.
Zach, is there a setback requirement for the dumpster?
Actually, no. We went through that with
I just-
urgent,
I
remember
just wanted to
urgent care?
verify that.
It's a very good question because we did go through that with urgent care on 441 a couple years ago, and we had to clarify that, and no, it does not have one.
Okay, because this was very close to the parking line. The other one was probably 10 feet off. That's all.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm gonna say is the light pole relocation. I just want to make sure that whatever luminaires put on there, that we're getting light at that entry. And I'm not sure of the distribution of the current fixture, but that should be taken into consideration and.
If not, add one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that'd be my only thing.
The addition, was that on the original approval for the?
No.
No,
Okay.
that came in.
No,
So,
that's
so that
this
was,
part.
so that would change slightly the east elevation.
Correct.
In the north one.
The north for the most part. The addition that's taking place,
North, I'm sorry, yeah.
yeah, is this 100 square feet addition that Doug was going around with the hand there. It just bumps out there and kind of shades it a little better. That slides that over a bit with that brand wall. But yes, we would include,
So they
we would
just
reference those
update the-
elevations.
Update the drawings for the,
Yep, and we've seen those as elevation drawings, so we would document that in the resolution.
okay.
Anybody have any other issues with this? Terry? Good?
I'm good.
All right, I guess this one's mine. I'll move to approve the short EAF.
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
And I'll move to approve this.
Second.
Do we have a draft?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, yes. Sorry about that. I was writing.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Back,
Okay, 1.
back to 1. Where it all started. Those for later. All right, so 280 Panorama Trail. This is back following a sketch plan that was concluded last June. Obviously, we had our public hearing this evening. Lots of information, lots of good questions. Sounds like a number of concerns, which require some more detail and thoughts that are captured in writing for the board to consider. Any immediate questions for staff as we go through this? What a handoff there. They stayed together very nicely.
The one comment about snow plowing along Panorama Trail, is there anything design-wise that would be done, could be done?
You're saying, from the contractor's point of view, from someone who's coming in to plow that driveway?
No, from the town's point of view,
We would have to treat it like every other driveway.
yeah. Okay.
I mean, there's a number of driveways and entrances there, and this is a private drive, so.
Yeah, it's gonna be just like any other driveway.
Exactly. We can't make special conditions.
So, one thing that I wanna, lighting, I don't wanna see 6 18-foot poles there.
I was wondering if.
I want-
Did he say 18 or
I-
8?
18.
He said 18.
Oh, my,
That's
I'm
not
deaf.
happening. That is not happening.
I would catch you out.
So, what will happen is
That's on me.
bollards or something mounted, low-level light mounted on the guardrails. That could be decorative, 4x4
More like
wood.
markers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. There's plenty of light fixtures available that'll do a great job and not become a parking lot. So that's something that,
Yeah. It's a very low impact solution.
it'll light up the driveway, not impact everybody else.
I like that
And
idea of,
look way better.
I like that idea of incorporating it in the guide rail.
Or, yeah, something like that.
You went high enough so the snowbanks are covered.
That too. So in any case,
6 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet.
It doesn't even have to be 6 feet. I mean, a bollard,
plus as
So-
you're going down, you gotta think.
that
I don't know
snow is
how
gonna
much-
go over the edge
Sure it
and
is.
not,
Well, if you've got a guardrail, Hawk, they can't get it over the edge, can they?
depends on the guardrail, right? So if
Design
it's
of
just
it, yeah.
I mean, it's probably not gonna be a interstate type guardrail. It'll be like,
Cables.
Parking lot.
Timber guide rail.
yeah, something that's residential in nature and something that you'd see going to a lake house or something probably.
He said the snow removal in the main maintenance of that road would be up to the homeowner association. I could see where, initially, there's gonna be one person putting it.
That, and also, they don't need an HOA for 4 homes.
I don't know what the minimum.
I think it's
No,
6.
they're permitted
I
to
thought it
have-
was 6 or something.
It's 5 or 6 is the number in our code, for minimum, or for max on a private drive, so.
It's something we do, we
I
just.
think we've got to clarify that comment, I think, because that was the
Yeah.
first we've heard of it.
So initially, you're gonna have homeowner association of 1. And they're gonna be responsible for that.
Yep.
400 plus foot road.
Correct.
Well, we also.
Could be him.
I was gonna say, there's also
He
a
could be
developer
living
at that
there.
time.
What's that?
There's also, since those lots haven't been built out and developer, home builder, all part of this, there might be a way for responsibility to be held on to throughout that final build process until the 4th house is built.
Yep.
Um,
That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah, one thing I'll have to think about more. One of our immediate concerns that came up was with lot 4, and this is just something to think about as we go forward. You got a house there that's situated between 2 drainage ways. Again, these are not mapped stream epods. These are drainage ways that are known to exist, however. And that house is situated between 2 of them, and I understand the grading he's proposing. If you go to the grading plan, which, God, I hope it's readable at this point. Proposing,
Basement's at 311.
they're proposing retaining, yes. And you got a contour at 310, right around that drainage area, which goes, that's about as low as it gets, right, Mike?
Is that invert, say, 307?
Yeah.
That's his proposed invert rate.
Okay, so he's a few feet below the basement. It's just, is that a lot the board would even consider in the future as we go through this because of, Bill, to your point, usable? You're sandwiching this thing between 2 drainage corridors with a retaining wall, and you're kind of directing a lot. There's a lot of water around it. And I think that's something to consider. We talked about this at PRC. And everything else, our biggest concern is phasing of construction and how this takes place. I'll tell you this, there's no way they're not going to close a lane of traffic at some point when a truck comes in. There's if you drive past this thing and you're looking at it at the street and what frontage they have, if a 10 or 12 wheel dump truck's coming in there, that is an extremely tight situation for it to pull up, back in,
right about here.
dump, and go, and still have a dozer operating there.
Right, and they've got that catch basin right there. Is that something that trucks are gonna destroy?
There'd have to be
2,000 of them?
There'd have to be significant protective measures in place, starting with probably some significant stone along that grassed area to help reinforce it.
It's soft.
And whatever measures. Again, there's a lot of information there that's not available to you yet.
Dump truck is not a huge dump truck, is it? It's not the double axle.
It's a
10 yards
six-wheel.
is a lot of dirt.
Is that a 6-wheeler?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a 6-wheeler.
Yeah, but it's not a, a double axle tandem.
I don't know what they.
No, I get 10 yards. I get
six-wheel.
10 yards of mulch every year, and it's not going to fill a big, a small, garden center
Getting you there.
dump trucks
he's gonna
delivering
Google
like
it.
10 yards of mulch.
We'll Google,
Well, the yard.
Yeah.
Terry, you want one?
You're gonna need a.
You want one?
right there, New Western, there you go.
14.
10 to 14 is that thing. Wow.
But
Huh.
New York State might limit the
You
load
gotta consider
amount.
the weight too. 75 pounds per cubic foot.
Yeah, the weight of a vehicle there on that edge, I think, is going to be limited to a 6-wheel dump truck. Single
10,000 pounds
axle.
per
10
cubic
yards of
yard.
mulch, but you really only got 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
He said 9 to 10. He said 9 to 10.
No wonder he left town.
Are you watching?
Off again.
He still watches.
Well, there was a statement that there would be 6 weeks of dirt delivery. To do that, 6 weeks of dirt delivery, they would have to have, I calculated it here, it's like 667 trips a day or something like that. I forget. It was a lot. 67 trips a day.
67 trips a day.
That's not gonna happen.
So if that's 67 trips a day in a
5
8-hour day,
7 to 7
and
is your work
if
day.
they're doing it, they start at 7 in the morning on Panorama Trail.
It comes out to every 7 minutes you're dumping a truck.
I'm thinking they
To do
can't
it
really
in
start
6
dumping
weeks.
until 9 in the morning.
Just because
Right
of
after,
just
I mean-
getting through 441 Panorama.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they go.
9 to 3, 6 hours a day.
Well, if I calculated an 8-hour day, a delivery every 30 minutes is gonna be, for 5 days a week, is gonna be 25 weeks. If you go a delivery every 20 minutes, that drops down to 17 weeks. So you're looking at between 4 and 6 months of dirt.
And if you
delivery.
throw Saturday in the mix,
If you
you're
throw
still,
Saturday, it reduces a little bit more.
but you're still more than 2 months.
Oh, you're probably, I'm guessing 4 to 5, realistically. I don't know how many trucks they have.
And it's our road, so I mean, we have a lot to consider here. I mean,
Yeah.
we are the authority on it. It's not like we can weigh on the state to say, oh, hell no, you can't do this.
Now, I'm not a civil engineer, but when you dump dirt and you compact it, do you have to wait a period for it to settle, like a year, before you can build on it? I'm not sure, I don't know.
And that's
That's a
beyond
lot
that's
of dirt.
beyond civil. That's getting
Right.
into geo.
Structural, yeah, geo. I mean, you potentially, yeah, you can compact it, but you need to make sure you're doing it at every foot. You're compacting it and this and that. If you're just dumping it,
So
and
how are
now I'm
they-
gonna run the roller today, maybe it's gonna need some time to settle.
And how do they get, that roller, that compactor to the bottom
That's
to start each foot of compaction?
Each level,
That's
yeah.
part of our concern is how does
How does it all start?
it all start?
How does it all start? I mean, look, we all get the, hey, I want the deer and the buffalo and everything to roam free and stuff, but the raw economics of that, of just paying the drivers and the gas and for these trucks,
Material.
for
The material.
the material,
For 4 houses.
for 4 houses
Potentially 4 houses.
that are $500,000.
I don't see it.
I don't either, but I mean, it's
Beyond
not
the
my-
economics, I think you still need that information about how is this done.
Yeah, the economics are not really our
Right,
purview,
Yeah. So what's the detailed logistics
That's what
for
needs to be
building the road?
that is the,
detailed and
Yeah.
reviewed before anything goes anywhere, and that information is still being generated.
Yeah.
So I'll just say, maybe I should apologize for the timing of this without having all that information for you right now. It had to start somewhere.
had to start
because
somewhere, and this is,
Everyone does have the right to ask, and that's what we have done so far. But I think as staff, we are certainly going to keep working with them to get all the information we need, and then have that probably reviewed by a consultant at some point.
my wife's cousin drives a dump truck for a living. I'm gonna contact them and find out, hey, what's the fastest you can get in and out of a site to dump a load?
And
What's it take, average?
you could have a follow-up question. Take a look at this site, what would you do?
Yeah, he lives in Staten Island. So.
Drive by the site, take a
We'll
look.
fly them out.
The bulldozer operator would need a flag. I see a flagman north
Yeah.
and south stopping traffic while the truck backs in, dumps.
And to that point, Bill, that's where our highway department would come into play, not to do the work, but to
Right.
weigh in. Our highway superintendent would have to weigh in on this to
How
say,
would you
you
do
are,
this?
you have to do X, Y, Z on this road at all times, during construction hours. So that has yet to be even gotten to yet. And again,
And
the
that's
whole thing with this is
probably
how does it start and how does it
rate
work?
pay. probably gotta be rate pay,
It's up to
prevailing
them.
wage.
Well, they're not doing it for
We're
the
not
town.
doing it.
Not doing it, but they're doing it on town property, right?
No,
It's a road.
it's only when town takes on
Our project, it's our
Okay,
project.
construction
okay,
project.
fine. I don't wanna scare them that much.
He mentioned that the road's 16-foot wide,
Yes.
and we were concerned with that. I think, he
Well, what is
said
the-
he could go to 18. I would say as a minimum 18, because with that grade, and you figure in bad weather, when cars are crossing, there may be a little slipping on that grade and
Yeah, there
stuff. You're
could
gonna
be-
want as much pass room
That
as
you can get.
possible. So I don't know, what's a standard, like, not maybe Atlantic Avenue, but, what's the,
11
for
foot
Panorama
lanes.
Trail, what's the width of a lane?
Well, typically you want an 11-foot lane.
Okay.
Town subdivision roads are 22 feet.
Okay.
I mean, you could go down to 20.
And we've approved long private drives, which is for one home, not four, but
Right.
on less than 16. But I think
But
this
you
is,
throw the slope in there.
yeah,
Right,
this
yeah.
is
Throw the slope in there in 4 homes.
4 homes,
That's
complete
the,
safety
and a
factor.
long drive. It's not
It's
as
four
if,
on, yeah, it's a long
Yeah.
drive.
hey,
You don't just back
I'm
up
pulling
for
off
10
a
feet.
Panorama because I'm in a boatload of traffic and somebody's halfway up
Mhm.
the hill.
Someone halfway up's going halfway down,
Yeah.
because you're not backing up the hill.
So I think that width, I don't know what the number should be, but
And then what does that
18,
do to
20?
the amount of fill if you?
I know,
Well,
Right, it expands that too.
it expands that.
Yeah, you got your average pickup truck or whatever that's probably 7.5 feet wide. Then with the mirrors, it maybe 8 feet wide. So then,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
if you got
dually.
2, you're kissing those mirrors, but that would be 16, I guess. So that would be,
Why would you go less than 20?
well, and the fire marshal really needs to chime in and
Well,
the
he's gonna-
cul-de-sac.
And he'll have to coordinate with the fire chief, more importantly,
Well, that-
because of
Right.
they're the ones servicing that. And we started that communication. Unfortunately, I only had the comment that I had during the meeting about the grassed island, which, I don't mean to correct anybody, but that is not an undisturbed area that has grading in it, that circle, donut, middle. There's nothing undisturbed about that.
In the
And
middle of the cul-de-sac?
it does this, so.
Yeah, personally, I don't wanna see that paved. If this thing goes in, I don't wanna see, that to me is like, okay.
I know, I knew you were kind of go there. That's why I'm glad you asked the geogrid question.
Yeah, that's a perfect application for that stuff.
I mean, it's already got a wider driveway there. I don't know how he's gonna go to 24, but he said he could go to 24 wide there. But to Mike's point and to Bill, the fire marshal does need to coordinate with the fire chief. And we probably need to get some more formal comments from him about this project.
Now, there's another question I have. In lots 1 and 2,
Yes.
I believe both driveways are 18 feet wide, not 20. What's the standard for the town?
I believe
I thought it was
18 is.
For the driveway to the home?
Yeah, if you look, lots 1 and 2, on my drawing here, it looks like on lot 2,
Sheet.
he's got an arrow, it says 18 feet.
On lot 2, yeah.
18.
Yeah, 18's the typical.
Yeah, I think
Lot
it's
width.
standard, yeah.
Typical driveway?
Yeah, because your
'Cause you got a lot
garage
of
door, your
driveways.
double garage door is 16 feet wide, so you're
foot on
foot
each
on.
side.
And there's a lot of driveways that are just as wide as the garage door openings in some cases.
Because my driveway is 20, I thought that would be a standard.
Depends on the builder, to be
No?
honest with you.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out.
Yep.
You can go around bragging around town that you got a wide driveway.
Extra wide driveway.
Hey, opening those doors is nice.
Maybe I'll paint it.
How wide is your driveway?
Oh, boy. So, moral of the story, a lot of information to be sought and clarified, and I think the board definitely needs some soak time on it. We'll
Does
see.
this rise to the level of an environmental impact statement?
We're currently looking at it as an unlisted action. Therefore, we can ask, I honestly can't remember if we have a full EAF for this or not. Do we, Doug, can you confirm that?
I think we should get that.
No.
So-
Got a short EAF.
I will,
That
that will
we
be
should
the
do
first,
before we-
that will be first and foremost. And based on how we review that, we can make a determination on seeker.
Yeah.
Our initial thought as staff is an unlisted action for it because predominantly we're looking at the slopes for the most part and the bigger thing, how it could get constructed. So yeah, that's what I have so far. I can't remember if there's anything else. And I know, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, we received a soils report, I think, for this at some point. Right, we have to double check
I
that.
think we did.
I thought we got
Some foundation design.
something.
Well, it might have been perk test for the pond.
Or maybe it must be in there. Well, we don't have a report yet either. You know what, I think Mark may have it.
Yeah.
So we'll have to check on that because I think it's during the sketch letter, the board had asked for a format of soils studies to confirm that is this suitable to be built on, even to start with because of those wet, sandy soil
I don't
conditions.
see it in here.
Okay.
So are we gonna send a letter to the applicant tonight, or do you wanna soak it?
It'll-
Well, this is preliminary final.
We'll have a tabling resolution tonight, because it is for preliminary final approvals. We will document the full EAF. We'll document the light poles, and
The width of
the width of the drive,
and logistical
providing logistical information.
schedule of construction.
Realistic,
Yeah, realistic.
not 6 weeks to bring all
I mean, that was kind of a,
On the spot answer.
well, somebody that takes great pride in knowing their facts and making it clear that they know their facts better than you know your facts. And those facts didn't seem to be as factual.
I knew you were gonna use that word. I was gonna say it, but I let you.
All right.
No, AJ, I completely
I'd like
agree.
to see, all right, time is time. Size of load is size of load. How do you do it?
Completely.
What's it gonna take?
Completely agree. It's one of the most important elements of this
Yeah.
project.
And he's gonna have to recalculate the amount of fill if they go to a 20-foot drive,
Mm-hmm.
because it's gonna be 10% lighter, so 10% more, so 22,000 cubic yards.
Right. It's another 200 deliveries.
A lot of notes. I'll capture that all in a tabling resolution. We'll also ask for clarification about the HOA that came up. I will reference our town code with regards to the number of lots on a private drive.
What does Panorama Trail typically see in a day, traffic
Go
lights?
to that town website. We did it in 16, we did
Yes, we did
Traffic
16 just
counts.
north of there.
just north of there, and we needed DPW to stop traffic so we could put the traffic counters down. So, that
So
was
there's some
fun.
traffic.
Well, I'm just, you gotta go, yeah.
Well, it's because they went out at 7:30. We want to do it now.
You gotta get the peak time. So,
6,000, a little over 6,000.
yeah, 6,000 by
6,000 a day.
Farmbrook.
Okay.
And that is over what period?
That's over a week.
Over a week?
It seems to be fairly consistent. We've done it a couple other times, and they've all come around
About
6,000.
6,000 a day.
And the average speed at Farmbrook was about 33 miles an hour. That's the 85th.
So that's a 25 mile per hour zone.
That's the 85th percentile. So,
Okay.
BJ, you were driving too good at the time.
No, obviously not.
We set one up further south from there, but it got
Yeah,
ripped
we
up, so we didn't get the data from it.
Yeah.
Because we set one up,
we looked at probably doing it again once the weather cooperates.
because we set
Okay.
the other one up like right.
Because there's a lot of traffic that does cut down Huntington Meadow, so we were trying to get
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
speed changes from 25 to 35.
right.
Right. Ooh. I'll say somewhere
And
right
we
around
generally
Yeah,
do like
it
to
opens
see the site distance for 5 miles over the speed limit because
Yeah, because of that. Who drives the speed limit?
nobody.
Nobody.
I do.
Terry does.
Yeah, Terry does. I'm sure he does.
Got that on record now. I do.
That's because he's old now and can't see too well.
I got a governor on my car.
All right, so somebody want to move, do we need to cover anything else before we table this and,
No, I got nothing left.
all right, I'm gonna give you all my notes.
Oh, you're a nice guy. Table, we need a vote on a tabling resolution.
I'm gonna move to, table.
Somebody
I
second?
will second.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
All right, with that, we will adjourn. Have a great
Hell was that?
rest of your evening, people. Thank you for all your help.